after being reincarnated as the twins of a popular idol named Ai. The two must work together to find their mother's killer. The story begins as a doctor named Goro watches the concert of his favorite idol, but he's interrupted by a nurse who wonders why he's watching it in a patient's room. He believes that witnessing beauty is good for health, so he considers it a form of medicine. The nurse tells him Ai is going on a break due to her health, which makes him cry, but she thinks he's sus, since Ai is only 16 years old. He mentions that when he did his residency in the hospital, he used to slack off in a patient's room. During that time, he met a girl named Serena, who was a huge fan of Ai, and she mentions that if she could be reincarnated, she would want to be just like her. He thinks the idea of being reincarnated is nonsense, but she mentions that she always wanted to be a celebrity's child. He thinks there's no need for her to be reincarnated, since she's already pretty, so she should become an idol when she's discharged, and she hugs him, asking him to marry her, but he tells her she should ask again once she's older. Serena ended up passing away when she was 12, and he started following Ai since she was her favorite idol, but the nurse still thinks he's weird. She wonders if he's just using Serena's name to hide his perverted desires, but he assures her he's supporting Ai with a pure heart. She asks him if he would want to go out with Ai, which leaves him speechless, and he tells her to get back to work. As he goes to his office, there's a girl there for her first checkup, but he realizes she's about 20 weeks pregnant, so it's quite late for the first assessment. The girl is 16 years old, so he asks the man next to her named Ichigo if he's her father, but he explains that he's just her guardian since she grew up in a foster home. The girl removes her hat as he realizes she's Ai, and Ichigo wonders if there's a chance she's just constipated, but he explains that it's impossible. He goes outside to prepare for her tests, but as he steps out, he starts freaking out since he just saw his favorite idol, and he listens to them talking about who the father is, but she refuses to say anything. After taking her tests, he tells them she's 20 weeks pregnant and is expecting twins. Ichigo explains that if the news of her getting pregnant goes public, her career in his agency will be finished, so he wonders if she's really planning on going through with it. She asks Goro for his advice, and he mentions her decision is the only one that matters, so she should think it through. At night, Goro thinks that if Ai has children, he won't be able to see her reach her full potential, but he decides to keep supporting her. She suddenly joins him, and he wonders if she came to a hospital in the countryside, because she doesn't want to be recognized in Tokyo. She wonders how he knows about her, since she never told him about her job, and he explains that he had a patient who was a fan of her. He wonders if she's going to give up being an idol, but she plans on giving birth and not making it public, saying she will continue to perform while she's pregnant, and he agrees to deliver her children. The next day, Goro advises Ai to use a fake name in the hospital, thinking her delivery will require an operation. So Ichigo becomes worried, since a scar on her stomach would become a problem in her job, and he wonders if there's any other method, but she assures him everything's going to be fine, thinking she will be able to do a natural delivery. Goro keeps helping her throughout the pregnancy, and he thinks the reason he became a doctor was just to be able to help her. The expected day of the delivery arrives, and before Goro heads home, he tells her that if he can't make it in time, another doctor will attend to her, but she wants him to be with her. He steps outside the hospital, but he's interrupted by a mysterious man who asks him if he's Ai's doctor. He's surprised when the man mentions Ai's family name because it hasn't been revealed to the public, and as he confronts him about the situation, the man suddenly starts running away. Goro tries to catch him, but the man pushes him off a cliff, which seriously injures him. He hears his phone ringing and tries to get to the hospital because he promised to be there for Ai, but he isn't able to get up. He remembers what Serena said about being reincarnated, and as he passes away, Ai gives birth, and he's reborn as one of her children. He starts living his new life as a baby named Aqua, but he's still confused by what happened because he still has memories of his previous life. He plans to solve the situation, but for the time being, he decides to enjoy his new life. He was born with a twin sister named Ruby, and he wishes he could switch names with her since he doesn't like the one he was given. Ichigo visits Ai, and he tells her what she needs to do moving forward, because she plans on returning to her idol life. He mentions that the first step towards her comeback is to be on a music program, and while she's working, his wife Miyako will take care of the twins. but she wonders why she can't take her children to the studio, so he explains that if the news of her current situation gets out, her career in his agency would be over. After that, Aqua watches his mother on the TV and is relieved she's holding herself together, but he spits out his milk when she accidentally mentions one of her kids, but she manages to cover it up. Ai's group called Bikamachi is about to perform, and the broadcasting staff isn't excited because they all think the group is average, but when they start performing, everyone's amazed by them. Aqua thinks Ichigo is crazy to have Ai perform live because his agency will be destroyed if the truth about her gets out, but Aqua enjoys watching her performance. Ruby wakes up, and she also turns out to be Ai's fan. Aqua knows that she's also someone who got reincarnated because he saw her fighting against Ai's haters online. She's angry at him for not waking her up to watch their mother's performance, but he tells her he tried to wake her up several times. The next day, Ai tries to breastfeed Aqua, but he refuses and drinks his milk from the bottle. He thinks being breastfed is crossing a line, but Ruby has no problem with it. Ai kisses them goodbye, and Aqua tells Ruby to show a little restraint, but she believes it's her right, reminding him that Ai is their mother. He wonders if she was a girl in her previous life, and when she tells him yes, he thinks it's okay for her to be breastfed. She starts crying because she wants a diaper change, and as Miyako attends to her, she wonders why this has become her job. She married Ichigo because she thought she would be working with handsome guys, but she's stuck babysitting the twins instead. Ruby thinks she should be happy because she's serving Ai, but Aqua understands her feelings. She realizes she can make profit by selling the news of Ai's babies to a magazine, so she starts taking pictures of their health records. But Aqua starts talking to her, saying he's a divine messenger, but she thinks she's being pranked since babies can't talk. She tries to touch Ruby, who suddenly stops her, saying she's a goddess. She tells Miyako it's her duty to take care of them, and she will be punished if she exposes their mother's secret. So she freaks out, but Ruby tells her that if she behaves well, she might have a second marriage with a handsome actor, so she promises to take care of them. After that, Aqua praises Ruby for her acting and wonders if she performed in a theater in her previous life, but she reveals it was her first time acting, so he thinks she has talent. At night, as Ruby is sleeping, Aqua puts a blanket on her and thinks she's just like Serena. She wakes up, wondering if he called her name, and she thinks he could be Goru, since he knows her name from her previous life. A few months pass, and Ai isn't making as much money as she thought, but Miyako tells her their agency's profits are slim. She mentions she would be fine with what she's making if she were alone, but she has to earn more to provide a good life for her children. Ai leaves for her lessons, and Aqua asks Miyako why his mother isn't getting any better jobs, even though Bikamachi is one of the top groups. So she explains that in idol groups, dozens of people work together because it's difficult to do everything alone. So they need to split the profits, and she mentions that Ai can't get rich unless she's able to succeed without her group. They go to Ai's mini concert, but Miyako tells the twins not to stand out, and Ruby says she's only there because she's worried about her mother. The concert begins, and Ai is distracted because she thinks about a hate comment she read before the performance, which mentioned that her smile was fake. But when she sees her children cheering her on, she forgets all of her worries. The video of them dancing goes viral, and as Ai reads through the comments, she sees the same person who was hating on her. He praises her smile, since he thinks the reaction she showed to the kids dancing was genuine. After a year, the twins grow up, so they can now talk openly without being considered suspicious, and Ai has been taking on different gigs. She has a job to act in a drama, and on their way to the studio, Miyako reminds the twins not to call Ai their mother in front of anyone. At the studio, Aqua runs into the director Taishi, who tells him not to interrupt the filming. So Aqua assures him he has nothing to worry about, but he's shocked by how a child is able to communicate effectively. So he gives Aqua his business card, telling him to call if he wants to work as an actor. But he wants Taishi to offer the job to his mother, and Taishi mentions that with her looks and some luck, she might survive in the industry. He's shocked that she still needs luck to be successful, even though she's beautiful, so Taishi explains there are 3 types of actors. The first are the stars, whose job is to attract an audience, and since their role is important, they earn a lot of money. The second are those with real talent, and their role is to ensure the quality of the product on screen. And the third are the newcomers, who have the least important roles. but they get passing marks if they bring a breath of fresh air to the screen. The industry invests in the newcomers, but unless they draw in viewers or become liked on set, they will be replaced. Taishi thinks they need to be excellent at something to succeed, and Aqua thinks his mother will be fine, since she's a first-class idol, but Taishi says it's not enough. As Ai plays her role, he mentions that her acting is average, but her looks draw attention to her, and even she is aware of this. At night, Ai and the twins prepare to watch her scenes, but are shocked because most of them have been cut out, and she wonders if it's because she's a bad actor. Aqua calls Taishi, who explains that the lead actress's agency advertises her for her cuteness, so when they saw that Ai looked cuter than her, they told him to cut out as many of her scenes as possible. He understands how they must feel, so he offers Ai another role in a film, but on the condition that Aqua is also in it. The next day, Aqua meets with Taishi, who explains how the actors are selected by the higher-ups. If a film has a higher budget, the higher-ups have to select the actors who have a low chance of failing because they can't afford for the film to flop. He mentions that only a few directors have the power to cast anyone they like, but he explains that he can do it because they're only on a low-budget film. He confirms from Miyako that Aqua has signed with them because he'll be in trouble if he uses a kid who isn't with any agency. Aqua mentions that Ruby is a talented actor, but he still wants Aqua, reminding him about the condition on which he offered the job to his mother. After that, Ruby starts crying because she wants to go back home to Ai, and a girl named Kana, who is also an actor in the film, tells them to go home if they can't act professionally. She mentions that she saw Ai's previous drama, but she only had one scene because she's bad at acting, which makes Aqua and Ruby angry. The movie is about a woman who isn't happy with her appearance, so she goes to a shady hospital to get plastic surgery, and Aqua and Kana are playing the role of two creepy kids. As they're performing their scene, everyone's impressed by Kana, and Aqua knows he can't act like her. He thinks about what he should do, and realizes that Taishi didn't say it to his face, but he wants him to act like himself, because he thinks he's already creepy. After the scene, Kana approaches Taishi and asks him to shoot the scene again, but he explains that there's nothing wrong with it. She starts crying, because she didn't act as good as Aqua, and promises she can do better, but she's taken away. Taishi tells Aqua that communication skills are the most important part of being an actor, because if someone is disliked by their fellow actors and staff, they won't go far. Aqua thinks Kana's acting was more impressive compared to him because he was just being himself, but Taishi thinks it was still great because he was able to figure it out. After some time, Aqua mentions how their film was well received, and Taishi was even nominated for an award. Aqua thinks his acting was good, but it was his mother who carried the movie. After the film, Ai has been getting more jobs, and her career is starting to take off. She's going to be turning 20, and they've been able to hide their relationship from the public, but Aqua's body from his previous life still hasn't been found. The twins enroll in a preschool, and as they're playing in the playground, Aqua wonders how old Ruby was in her previous life. She thinks if she turns out to be younger than him, he will tell her to do everything he says, so she says she was an adult woman, and he shouldn't care about her previous life. He thinks she's right, because every time he thinks about his old life, he gets sad, thinking it's because he's enjoying his new life. During their class, the teacher tells everyone to practice their dance routines, but Ruby runs away. Aqua wonders if something is wrong with her, and she tells him she can't dance because she never did it in her previous life, but he wonders if she's okay living her whole life in fear. Ruby tries to practice alone, but falls down, so Ai decides to practice with her. She starts dancing, but Ruby notices her moves are a little off, and Ai is surprised she remembers her concerts. Ruby thinks about how in her previous life, she spent most of her time in a hospital room, where she watched Ai's concerts hundreds of times. She tries to show Ai what she's doing wrong, but she falls down again, and Ai notices the way she's moving, telling her it's like she's preparing to fall down, so Ai tells her to stand confidently. At night, Ruby remembers how she always wanted a body that could do everything she wanted, so she isn't going to waste the opportunity. She starts dancing, as Aqua secretly watches her, thinking she's incredibly talented. The next day, Ai sees her children talking about who their father is, so she calls her ex and asks him if he wants to meet his kids. At night, Ichigo celebrates the ratings of Ai's drama, and also because B. Kamichi's schedule is fully booked, and they're even performing in a stadium soon. He asks Ai to drink with him, but Miyako stops him and reminds him she isn't 20 yet. Ichigo is celebrating so much because it was always his dream for an idol from their agency to perform at a stadium. Ai wonders if stadiums are really that special, and Miyako explains how only a few people manage to perform at a stadium because it doesn't only require money but also a large commitment for staff. Ichigo mentions that it's an important period in all their careers, so Ai shouldn't be involved in any scandals, and he advises her not to meet the children's father. She assures them she won't do such a thing, but she thinks about how she's a compulsive liar, and without even thinking, she always says whatever fits the situation. In a flashback, Ichigo approaches Ai to become an idol, and she tells him about her horrible past, thinking it would scare him away. She says she has never loved anyone, so she can't become an idol because she wouldn't care about her fans. But he explains that the job isn't for normal people, and her background gives her individuality, but she mentions how idols are always saying they love their fans, so if she said it, she would be lying. He tells her that fans prefer pretty lies, and he thinks if she just sings and dances while looking cute, it's an expression of love for them. He believes that if she keeps saying she loves her fans, eventually it might turn into the truth, so she decides to become an idol, hoping she would find something she can actually love. We return to the present, as Ai notes that she has never told her children she loves them. On the day of the concert, the doorbell rings, and Ai thinks it's the president, but as she opens the door, it's the man who killed Aqua in his previous life. He stabs her with his knife, and says she never cared for her fans, thinking she always lied about how she loved them. He tells her how she isn't capable of loving anything, but she explains that when she was singing her songs, she hoped her lies would become the truth, and she would really be able to love them. He thinks she's just lying so he will spare her, thinking she doesn't even remember him, but she calls him by his name Ryosuke. She remembers him from her fan events, and even mentions the vial he gave her is in her living room, so he starts crying, and he runs away, as Aqua calls the ambulance, but his mother hugs him, telling him she won't make it. Ruby hears something going on, but her mother tells her not to come, because she doesn't want her to see that she's about to die. She praises Ruby for her dancing ability, and says she wanted her to become an idol too, so they could perform together. She hopes she would be there to see them grow up, and with her last breath, she tells them she loves them. Everyone learns about the incident, as a news reporter mentions that Ai has been killed by her fan, who took his own life several hours after the incident. Most of the public's response was sympathetic, but a few people tried to use the incident to get attention. 3 days after Ai's death, the news slowly dies down, and she was never mentioned again. Ruby and Aqua managed to avoid the spotlight, because Ichigo and Miyako had already transferred them to their family register. Miyako asks them to join her family, and she mentions that Ai will always be their mother, but she also considers them as her children. After Ai's funeral, Ruby wonders if she should become an idol, but Aqua mentions there are other easy ways to make money, and there's heavy criticism for idols, especially if they have boyfriends. He thinks she will bounce back, because after years of living with her, he has realized she has a pure heart. He knows he was killed by the same person who killed Ai, and he wonders how the man knew she was admitted to that hospital, and even though she moved into a new home, he was still able to find her. Aqua knows that Ryosuke was a student who had no special skills, and he couldn't have found all the information on his own, so Aqua thinks someone close to her was helping him. He believes their father is the one behind everything, knowing she kept him a secret, but considering how small her social circle is, he thinks their father must be in the same industry. Aqua realizes they share the same blood, so he's planning to use a DNA test to help him find his father. He lost all hope in life, but he now has a new goal, which is to find his father and kill him. Aqua meets with Taishi, who knows what happened to his mother, so he doesn't know what to say, but Aqua tells him he wants to be raised by him. 10 years later, we see Ruby in her school, where she talks with her friend about the auditions for an idol group she applied for, and she's hopeful she will pass the test, because she wants to be like her mother. At home, Aqua tells Ruby it's okay to dream big, but she also has to prepare for the high school entrance exam. She mentions when she becomes an idol, she will get into high school no matter what her academic results are, but he tells her she should look at reality instead of just dreaming. He mentions that idols have a low salary, and most people don't survive in the industry, but she thinks if she lives in fear, she won't be able to achieve anything. He leaves to meet Taishi, and she thinks he has changed since their mother's death. She notes that he doesn't enjoy anything, and she thinks he's up to something with Taishi, but he won't tell her what it is. After Ai's death, Ichigo left the agency, so Miyako had to take over, but without Ai in the group, Komichi disbanded, and the agency is now managing internet celebrities. Ruby wonders why they aren't making another idol group, so Miyako tells her it isn't easy, thinking they just got lucky with Ai, because they can't find someone who can replace her. Ruby receives a call about her audition, but she learns that she's been rejected, so she starts crying, and Miyako tells her that politics are a part of the industry, so she can't expect her ability to be judged fairly. But we see that Aqua was the one who called Ruby from Taishi's phone, and he asks Aqua what he's going to do if the agency calls her themselves. But he reveals that he has already texted them using Ruby's phone, so they think she's no longer interested to become an idol, and he adds that he blocked their number in her settings. Taishi wonders why he's trying to crush his sister's dream, but he says he won't let her follow their mother's footsteps. Ruby gets scouted by an agent, but Aqua and Miyako are suspicious that the offer isn't real, so she tells them she has been invited to watch the idol group's concert, and they will go over the contract afterwards. After she leaves, Aqua says he has to do something to stop her, and Miyako knows he doesn't want her to end up like their mother, saying she also wants to protect her, but she doesn't want to stop her from chasing her dreams. He mentions that there are good and bad underground idol groups, so he decides to investigate the one Ruby has been scouted for. Aqua approaches a girl named Lana, who is signed with the agency that scouted Ruby. He tells her they want to offer her a proposal, but she needs to give them her current contract terms. So she explains everything, and mentions she's making less than 100,000 yen per month. He wonders if she has any problems with the group, so she tells him the manager isn't being fair, because he's only promoting the girl he's dating. After she leaves, Miyako thinks they shouldn't trust everything Lana said, because due to the jealousy of the girls, she might be spreading false information. But Aqua still doesn't want Ruby to join the group, because he doesn't trust them. The next day, Ruby is excited to finally become an idol, and Miyako tells her all the bad things that come with it. But she doesn't care, saying she wants to follow in her mother's footsteps, so Miyako asks her to sign with their agency, telling her they're going to create a new idol group. Miyako makes her sign a contract, and asks Aqua not to be mad, since it's required for her to get into the performing arts department in high school, but he says he was never against it. Aqua goes to Taishi's house, where he helps him with his film production, and we learn that he's too young to work formally, so he's acting as Taishi's apprentice. He mentions that Ruby is about to become an idol, but Aqua thinks it's okay, because their family is managing the group. Taishi recalls the time when Aqua came to him to become his apprentice, and he thought Aqua was serious about becoming an actor. But we learn that he only wanted to get into the industry, so that he could find his father, but he realized it can also be achieved if he just works behind the scenes. He mentions that he has no talent for acting, but Taishi thinks he shouldn't stop dreaming, and he's about to say something important to Aqua, but is interrupted by his mother. Aqua thinks he should move out of his mother's house, but he doesn't think there's any benefit to leaving a spacious home in the middle of the city. Aqua mentions there was a time he thought he had talent like his mother, but Taishi thinks he shouldn't compare himself to her, because they're different people who possess different talents. He wants to ask something from Taishi, but they're once again interrupted by his mother. At the U2 high school, we see Aqua and Ruby having their interviews, and we learn that Ruby applied to the performing arts department, while Aqua picked the general knowledge department. After their interviews, they start talking about how everything went, but they're suddenly interrupted by Kana, who has also applied to the school. She remembers Aqua, and she's happy he will be in her class, but he tells her he applied to the general knowledge department, and she can't understand why he would do that. Aqua decides to leave, but Kana starts following him, and she keeps asking him personal questions. She thinks he's still acting, but when he tells her he quit, she feels sad. She tells him to go to her place, because she's a celebrity, so she can't talk in the open, and he understands her situation. So he takes her to Taishi's place, where she wonders why he's hanging out with him if he has quit acting, so he tells her he's working as his assistant. As they're having dinner, Kana is surprised that Taishi is still living with his mother. But she reveals that she's jealous because her parents live in the countryside, and she's living alone in her dorm. She wonders if he has any recordings of Aqua's performances, but he tells her if she wants to watch it, she will have to convince Aqua, who doesn't want anyone to see it. She mentions that she's working as the lead actress in a show, and there's one role they haven't filled, so she can talk to her higher-ups to cast him, but he isn't interested. Taishi asks her the name of the show, so she tells him the title, and Aqua recognizes it because of its popularity. She again asks him if he wants the role, because the director Kaburagi is fond of her, and Aqua recognizes him. We learn that his mother left behind 3 phones when she died, and Aqua investigated them, so he knows that 2 of them were normal, and they only had interactions with the people from the agency. The last phone was the one she was using before she got pregnant, but it was protected by a password, and if a wrong code was entered, it locked the phone for 30 seconds. He kept trying to open it, and after 4 years, he was finally able to guess the password. He looked through the contacts saved on the phone, realizing they're all from the entertainment industry, and one of them was Kaburagi. Kana keeps trying to convince him, telling him the male lead actor has a feminine face, and when he finally says yes, she thinks it's because he wants to meet the actor she mentioned, wondering if he's interested in men. She calls the producer, who thinks Aqua has potential, so he accepts her request. Miyako tells Ruby the news, and she thinks he's trying to fulfill Ai's dying wish because she wanted him to be an actor, but he only wants to get Kaburagi's hair to find out if he's their father. Miyako mentions the series Aqua has been cast in, saying it already has 6 episodes, and he will only appear in the finale as a villain. They decide to watch the episodes, but they realize it's boring, and the acting was bad, so they stop watching it. Ruby is confused, because the manga it's based on has a different story, and Miyako thinks many of the important aspects of the story were cut, because the team was trying to cram all the volumes of the manga into a single season. She adds that there are a lot of newcomers in the cast, which explains why the acting was terrible, and this surprises Ruby, because she thought Kana was a good actor. The next day, Aqua tells Kana what Ruby said about her, and this makes her angry, because she thinks she's an excellent actor. Aqua wonders why her acting was bad, and she reveals that the show is just a way for production to sell their up-and-coming models, so they're filling up the cast with handsome boys to hook their female audience. But they knew that the show would flop if it didn't have any good actors, so they hired her for the role. But she's holding herself back, because if she acted to her full potential, the other actors would look bad. She reveals that she wants to put everything into acting, but she knows a good performance doesn't always lead to a good product. She mentions that the show's production is biased towards the sponsors, so there's no way it can be entertaining, saying even the original manga's artist was disappointed when she came to the set of the first episode. But everyone's giving it their all, and they're trying to make the show watchable, so she decides to act worse for the team. Aqua tells her it will affect her reputation as an actor, but she thinks that people's skills are also important in the industry. She mentions that when she was younger, she only wanted to show off her skills, and she didn't treat anyone with respect, so everyone found her obnoxious. But she now realizes how important people's skills are, so she has become someone who's easier to work with, and will contribute to the quality of the production. She mentions that the previous actor for Aqua's role decided to quit, so their schedule is a mess, and they don't have time to do a read-through, but she begs him to help her make the show successful. After that, Aqua rewatches the show, as he notes that it looks hopeless because the actors are terrible. But he realizes that the production is trying to make the show watchable, and Kana is a talented actor, so he thinks there's still hope. The next day, Aqua is at the rehearsal set, and Kana mentions that the team has the site for only a day. So the rehearsal process has been sped up, which means they will only get to practice once. He thinks even Taishi is more organized compared to them, and she explains that they're lacking both in time and budget. They're suddenly interrupted by the male lead Melt, and Aqua introduces himself, but Melt ignores him. Kana tells him to greet the producer, but while doing it, the only thing he's thinking about is finding a way to get his DNA. After the rehearsal of the first scene, Kana mentions that his acting was fine, but he thinks anyone can do the role with enough practice. He thinks she found his acting amazing when they were children, because there was a huge disparity between his physical and mental age. But the gap has narrowed, so he has become an average actor, and he apologizes for his poor performance. But she thinks his acting was good, since he put aside his ego, and portrayed the role according to the story's needs. He wonders why he hasn't seen her in any popular shows, and she mentions how she wasn't getting any offers, so she thought about quitting, but she decided to continue, and she's happy because her ability has finally been recognized. Kaburagi wonders when they're going to resume filming, because Melt has a photo shoot with a magazine afterward. So the director tells him they're almost ready, and Kana has been keeping the cast under control, but he mentions that she will follow anyone, so it's easy to cast her for any role they need. Her name is still known to the public, and after she left her agency, her talent fees are low, so he thinks they got lucky with her. But the only bad thing about her is she's picky about acting, and he says the show is only a promotion, so acting skills aren't required. Aqua hears their conversation, thinking it's hard for people to get judged based on their abilities. He takes Kaburagi's cigarettes, planning to use them for the DNA test, and he notes that his goal has been accomplished, but he decides to go out with a bang. As the rehearsal resumes, Kana remembers her past when she used to be considered a prodigy, but everyone stopped caring about her. But she never gave up, and finally became a lead actress. She knows the reviews of the show aren't good, but the scene they're rehearsing is an important moment in the original manga, so she wants to align herself with Melt and make him look good. But as they start acting, she realizes that his acting is beyond saving, but she's surprised that no one is saying anything, so she wonders if they even care about the acting. Aqua enters the scene as he walks in puddles, and the staff asks the director if they should stop since it's making noise, but he wants to keep going, thinking it's stylish. Kana is surprised by Aqua's acting, because he wasn't that good earlier, but he's now in character. He knows he doesn't have the aura to attract the viewer's attention, and he's not as talented as I, but he will use all the tools at his disposal to become more like her. He insults Melt, which makes him angry, and the director realizes Aqua is improvising his lines, but he doesn't stop the scene, and even wants to put him more in focus. Aqua knows the scene is an important point in the show, and its climax is when the lead actress bursts into tears, so he decides to do his best to make her shine. As she starts crying, he's surprised by how good she is, and he remembers it was her specialty when they were kids. After the scene, Melt apologizes to Aqua for hitting him during the scene, but he mentions that he got hit on purpose so that Kana could display her acting skills. On the other hand, the author of the original manga named Kichi watches the episode, but her staff doesn't want her to go through the pain because they think the show is an insult to her work. She didn't have any expectations for the show, but after seeing the last episode, she starts crying and is happy she agreed to the adaptation. But we learn that the show's viewership had dropped, and only the manga fans continued watching. So the last episode didn't gain traction, but within a small circle, it was considered a masterpiece. A farewell party is held for everyone involved in the show, and Aqua is surprised to see how many people were working on it. Kana mentions all their jobs depended on the cast, so they had to deliver and avoid scandals at all costs. She wonders if he has a girlfriend, but he tells her he doesn't, so she doesn't have to worry about him getting into scandals. They're approached by Kichi, who praises Kana for her amazing acting, and this makes her cry. Kaburagi talks to Aqua and mentions that the show wasn't profitable, but its main purpose was to showcase talents, so they were able to achieve their goal. Aqua thinks about the DNA test result, which proves they aren't related, but he still finds him suspicious. Kaburagi mentions that he looks like I, and he asks Kaburagi about his relationship with her, so he reveals that he used to send her work and even introduced her to good clients. He also told her about places where she could meet people in secret, which makes Aqua wonder who she used to meet with. Kaburagi doesn't mind giving him the information, but in return, he wants him to be a part of a reality dating show. We see Aqua and Ruby during their first day of school, and Kana tells them how their class schedule is more flexible compared to the other schools in Japan, but they still have to get passing marks, or they will repeat the year. Ruby goes to her class, and she's surprised by how beautiful everyone is, but she thinks she also looks good, since she has eyes jeans. She sits beside a girl named Minami, but is shocked by the size of her chest. After Minami introduces herself, Ruby immediately looks her up and sees she's a pin-up model. Ruby later introduces her to Aqua and wonders if he also made friends, but he says he isn't there to meet people. Ruby thinks he couldn't talk to anyone, so she asks Minami to also be friends with him, but he thinks she should worry about herself since she's in a new environment. Minami is nervous, but Ruby tells her what Kana told her, which is to treat it like a regular school. Aqua mentions that he saw good-looking students during the entrance ceremony, but thinks none of them are famous. Ruby mentions a popular actor named Shirai Frill, who turns out to be her classmate, but Aqua isn't interested in her, saying his favorite will always be I. They see her walking past them, so Aqua approaches her and asks her to get along with Ruby. She saw his acting in his latest show, and she thought it was good, which surprises Aqua, since the show wasn't that famous. She also recognizes Minami, which shocks Ruby, because she seems to know everyone. But she doesn't recognize Ruby, asking her about her career, but she reveals that she doesn't have one, so Frill tells her to keep working hard. Ruby goes to Miyako, asking her to make her an idol, but Miyako explains that it isn't easy. Ruby thinks everyone in the school will start bullying her if she doesn't find work, but Miyako explains that she's having a hard time finding cute girls for their idol group. Ruby tells her about Minami, but Miyako refuses to work with her since she's signed with another agency, and Aqua tells Miyako to hire Kana since she currently has no job. Ruby follows Kana around the school, thinking Kana will be popular if she becomes an idol, but Ruby can't ask her to join the group because they aren't on good terms. But Aqua tells her to talk to Kana, saying they will look for someone else if things don't work out. He messages Kana to meet him after school, and she wonders why he wants to meet her, thinking he's going to confess his feelings. But as she arrives at the meeting place, she's disappointed to see Ruby with him. Ruby isn't sure if she should ask her, but Aqua explains that she has no other choice since she wants to start her group. So she asks Kana to join her idol group, and seeing that the offer is real, she asks for a moment to think about it. She knows if she accepts the offer, her career as an actress will be over, and if she fails to make it as an idol, she will lose everything. But for some reason, she sees Ai in Ruby, and this makes her believe she has the potential to succeed. Kana knows Ruby's agency isn't popular, and they don't have a history of launching new groups. She's also insecure about her looks, thinking she doesn't have what it takes to become an idol, so she doesn't want to risk her future. She's about to reject the offer, but Aqua begs her to join, saying he finds her cuter than an average idol, and he believes Ruby would be in good hands if she joins the group. He keeps trying to convince her, and she keeps telling him no, but she ends up signing with Miyako's agency. Miyako is shocked that he was able to change her mind, but he reveals that he just analyzed her personality and used her weak points to convince her to join. She mentions that she needed a change of direction in her career, but Ruby thinks she's just trying to convince herself that she made the right decision. She thinks she will get to learn from Aqua since they're in the same agency, and she wonders if he has any work coming up, but she's shocked when Ruby tells her he's appearing in a reality dating show. They see the show, and everyone's introduced to the audience, but Ruby and Kana are shocked because Aqua is acting like a different person. One of the participants named Cho calls Aqua handsome, and Ruby thinks she's the type of girl Aqua hates, but when he calls her cute, Ruby and Kana get angry. Kana notes that the only time he called her cute was when he was trying to recruit her, but Ruby thinks he's having fun being surrounded by the girls, so she will scold him when he gets home. Miyako tells them to calm down, since he's only acting, saying if he behaved like his normal gloomy self, it wouldn't be interesting. Kana is sad because in the show, the contestants end up going out with each other in reality, and they might even have to kiss. But Miyako tells her it's part of the job, and even she might need to do a kissing scene if she continues as an actress. Meanwhile, Aqua is bored, wondering why he's putting himself through this, but he remembers that Kaburagi promised to give him information about Ai's secret, including her relationships. The contestants are given the basic directions of the show, and one of them, named Yuki, thinks she's never going to stand out because she's scared. Aqua wonders why she came to the show, and she mentions that the top actors in her agency take all the jobs, so when Kaburagi approached her, she said yes to him. She reveals that she has never been in a relationship, so she's hoping that will change, and she wonders if Aqua is interested in finding a girlfriend. He thinks about Ai, and says he hasn't gotten over his previous love, but when he reflects on it, he isn't sure if it was love he felt for her. Yuki mentions that at the end of previous seasons, contestants end up kissing, and she was worried that she won't find anyone to do that with, but she says she wouldn't mind sharing a kiss with him. At night, Ruby tells Aqua that she will select who he should date, because he shouldn't go out with someone she doesn't like. Her first recommendation is Yuki, but he thinks she isn't good at reading people, so she's banned from relationships for the time being. The next day, Ruby wonders how Kana passes time when she doesn't have work, and she tells her to use the free time to study. She mentions that being an idol doesn't guarantee a successful life, so she's trying to get into a university to secure her future. Kana mentions they don't even have a group name yet, so they can't do anything, but Ruby blames her for not cooperating. She thinks picking a name will officially make her an idol, but she thinks she isn't ready. Miyako suggests they become YouTubers to build an online audience who will attend their live events. Kana doesn't think it will be easy, but Miyako mentions that the agency has a strong online presence with streamers under its name, and she has talked to someone who's willing to help them, so they should see what they can learn from him. A masked fitness YouTuber named Payan enters the room, but Kana thinks he's a pervert since he's only wearing underwear. She starts insulting him, but when he mentions that he makes 100 million yen a year, she quickly apologizes. He thinks the fastest way for them to gain subscribers is to collaborate with a famous YouTuber, and since they will work with him, they talk about what they should do to introduce them to his audience. He proposes a surprise morning visit since they're idols, and Kana is on board with the idea, but Ruby doesn't want to do it. They decide to wear masks and dance with him in his video, and he tells them that if they can keep up with him for an hour, they will be allowed to show their faces. They're able to fulfill the condition, and Payan praises them because he thought he would have to edit the video to make it look like they completed the challenge. He wonders what their group is called, and Kana tells Ruby to pick whatever name she likes, so she decides to use her mother's group name, Bikamachi. Yuki tells everyone she wants to quit the show because the boys at her school have been teasing her, and she's scared of showing her feelings to the whole world. Cho mentions that she feels the same since she makes a fool of herself before her viewers, and another contestant named Nobu also thinks about leaving. The viewers are shocked, wondering if Yuki is going to leave, but we see it was all a trick to get more views. Another girl named Akane wonders if Yuki will quit the show, but she notes that she can't because she signed a contract. She reveals that the boys really teased her, and she wished to leave the show because of the early morning shoots, so she just exaggerated her emotions to make her story believable. Aqua notes that after spending time with his co-stars, he realized that some of them are talented, but the others are struggling to grab enough screen time. Nobu invites him to join them for dinner, since Cho is treating everyone, which shocks her because she never said she would. Nobu reminds her that her channel has been growing lately, and she splits her profit 50-50 with her agency, while others only get a small fraction of the profits, so she agrees to treat them. Everyone enjoys the food at the party, except for Akane, who volunteers to be the server, since she's a vegetarian. She tells Aqua it's her policy to be the one using tongs whenever she's at a party, and despite not being good at it initially, she was able to improve over time. After Aqua returns home, Ruby scolds him, saying the food must have tasted good since he was surrounded by girls. But he's just happy to be young, because he doesn't need to worry about what he eats. She's angry because they always had dinner together on Sunday, but since he started filming the show, he has been ignoring her. He says the show isn't as staged as he thought, because even though a few of the cast members are acting, most are only trying to portray themselves in a positive light. Ruby wonders if everyone is actually falling in love, and he thinks it varies from person to person. He reveals that he never watched reality dating shows, so he didn't know what to expect, but he was shocked by how real it is. Ruby thinks it's good if the show isn't staged, but he believes it's the case only for the audience. In the show, the pairing of Yuki and Nobu becomes the center of attention, as another contestant named Ken looks at them with envy, so it turns into a love triangle. That evening, Cho wonders if Aqua will also go after Yuki, because it's the only way to gain attention, but he plans on playing it safe until the show ends. He asks her what she's going to do, and she reveals that her main goal is to gain subscribers for her channel, but if Aqua really likes her, she won't mind if he makes a move, but he says he isn't interested. She's more worried about Akane, and we see her agency's president reprimanding her manager, because even though the show is gaining popularity, she isn't getting screen time. He mentions how others were trying to get the part, but he chose her, and he tells her manager to make sure she leaves her mark on the show. Meanwhile, Ruby is about to criticize a drink in her tweet, but Kana stops her, because the company will never work with her if they see her post. Ruby thinks they will never see it, but she takes her phone and shows her that the company might search her name. She mentions that the times have changed, because people need to be mindful of what they post online, and those who neglect online marketing get left behind. In the show, Akane asks Nobu to come with her, and we see that one of the staff members tells her that if she wants to stand out, she needs to be the bad girl in the show and steal Nobu from Yuki. Later on, Yuki is polishing Akane's nails, as she mentions that she understands that Akane is nervous because the season is about to end. She says she just wants to stand out, but Yuki says she won't give up, because she doesn't want Akane to steal the spotlight. After that, Akane talks with Ken, but Yuki suddenly tries to take him away, and as Akane tries to stop her, she scratches her face. She can't believe she just hurt her. But Yuki hugs Akane, saying she understands her feelings, and she doesn't hate her. Aqua knows that if it was an average school incident it would be over, but the internet isn't going to let it go. At night, Akane sits in her room and reads all the hate comments she's getting. She thinks if she apologizes, everyone will forgive her, but as she posts the tweet, she starts getting even more hate. She remembers Cho told her that when someone apologizes for a mistake, it just makes the people think they were right for criticizing, because it proves that the person did something wrong. She forces herself to sleep, thinking she will forget about it when she wakes up, but it's not the case. At school, she overhears two girls talking about her, thinking she's insane, and it makes her sick. When she returns home, her mother wonders if something's wrong at work, because she seems a little off, but she assures her she's fine. She gets a call from her manager, telling her not to post any more tweets until things calm down, but as time passes, the hate continues to grow. Even her old schoolmates and fans start turning against her, so she decides to take her own life. But as she's about to jump off a bridge, Aqua saves her, telling her to calm down. Kana sees all the hate Akane's getting, and she mentions that everyone has a different mentality when dealing with such a situation. She notes that there were days when she thought about taking her own life, and she thinks Ruby can't understand that feeling of helplessness. Miyako says even though reality shows are popular all around the world, there have been many who have ended their lives because of it. Kana believes that if someone plays a character in the show, they might be fine, but the more they display their real selves, the greater the toll it takes on them. Ruby wonders if Aqua is fine, and Miyako gets a call, telling her that he has been involved with the police. We see Kana crying at the police station, and Miyako tells Aqua that when she got the call, she started preparing for the worst, but she's proud of him for saving Akane. He believes people die easily, so if someone hears a cry for help, they should act immediately, or it might be too late. The rest of the cast arrives, but Yuki starts crying, and she slaps Akane, saying she can always talk to her about anything. Aqua advises Akane to quit the show, and he explains that even though she's bound by a contract, the show's director will accept her request, because if something had happened to her, he could have been held responsible, since she's a minor. But she says she worked hard to become an actor, and everyone helped her get to this point, so even though she's scared, she's going to continue. Aqua knows there's a press club in the police station, where media journalists wait all day to get the latest news, so before they can get information about Akane, he posts the story online. It results in some of the people backing off, but there are also netizens who start insulting her, so Miyako wonders if it was the right course of action. But he thinks that if they stop, Akane will come out of the situation worse than before, so he thinks he needs to raise the stakes. Aqua asks Cho for everyone's photos, and she wonders why he needs them, so he tells her that the team is editing the footage to show Akane as the villain of the story, and he wants everyone to learn the reality. She realizes he's talking about shooting the show from their point of view, and she mentions that even though it looks like everyone's against Akane, most of the viewers are torn between attacking her or coming to her defense because of the news of her attempted suicide. She thinks that if they learn the reality, they will believe it to be the righteous position, and this will sway the public opinion on Akane. She asks him to give her the video after completing it, saying she's a pro at making things go viral. After that, Ken accepts Aqua's request to provide music for the video, and Yuki thinks they should include the moment when she hugged Akane after she scratched her face. Nobu mentions that it happened when the cameras weren't rolling, but Yuki calls him naive and reveals she knew where the fixed cameras were. So she placed herself in front of them to look good, which means the staff must have the footage. Aqua asks the director for the video, but he explains that they're prohibited from releasing raw footage. Aqua knows that releasing the footage would reveal that they're painting certain contestants as villains, which will make the people hate them more than Akane. The director explains that if she had told them not to use the footage, they would have accepted her request. But Aqua explains that she's only 17 years old, so she's going to make mistakes, but he's more surprised that the director didn't protect her. After that, Aqua completes the video, but we see that he's exhausted since the others kept bothering him. They post it on Twitter, hoping it gets retweets in the first few minutes, and they're happy when it starts doing well. Akane watches the video in her room and starts crying as the video gets 74,000 retweets in the first 24 hours, which not only changes the public opinion about her, but also solidified the popularity of the show. The online criticism dies down, but Aqua knows that even after 10 years, if something comes up about her, people will still bring up the incident. Akane meets with everyone, and she reveals that she's returning to the show from the next filming session. Aqua and Cho think she should start playing a character, because when a person's real self is attacked, it hurts more. They wonder what kind of girl Aqua likes, and he thinks about Ai, but as he explains her qualities, they think his description is too vague. Cho believes the girl who fits his description is Ai, and Akane decides to try copying her, but he thinks no one will be able to imitate her. As Akane returns home, she starts looking into Ai, because she thinks that if she can play her perfectly, it will make Aqua happy, but she realizes it will be difficult to copy her. Kana wonders if Akane will be alright, and Aqua assures her she has recovered. But Kana thinks Akane should have retired, and this annoys him, but she explains that she's only saying it because Akane is her rival. She wants her competition to die down, and she reveals that Akane is considered a gifted performer in the theatrical world. The next day, Akane returns to the show, and Aqua is shocked when she starts acting like Ai. Kana tells Ruby that Akane analyzes the role she's playing and performs it perfectly, so even if she isn't suitable for a reality show, she's a genius in acting. In the show, everyone's happy that Akane is back, but they find her different from before, and Aqua realizes she's getting everyone's attention because her charisma is just like Ai's. Cho realizes that ever since Akane returned, Aqua has been acting strange, and to test her theory, she asks him to give her the pouch next to him. He refuses, but when Akane tells him to do it, he immediately obeys, so Cho realizes he's only listening to what she's saying, and Yuki is surprised by how well she's imitating Ai. They tease Aqua, thinking he likes the new Akane, but this embarrasses him, and he suddenly walks out. They ask her if she will date him if he's really interested in her, and she mentions she wouldn't mind doing it, so they tell her to keep going after him. Meanwhile, Kana and Ruby are watching the show, as Kana mentions that it's boring, so she's going to stop watching it, but Ruby is surprised by how well Akane is acting like Ai. The next day, Kana feels sad when she hears people supporting the pairing of Akane and Aqua. She's shocked when he suddenly appears behind her, asking her to skip class and come with him instead. She thinks they're going somewhere popular, since they're wearing their uniforms, so they won't stand out, but he wants to play catch with her in the park. She throws the ball away from him because she isn't good at it, telling him he should have brought Ruby or someone from the show. But he explains that everyone in the show is always thinking about their next move, so he can't comfortably talk with them, but he doesn't need to worry about that with her, because she doesn't have a hidden agenda. She knows the show is ending soon, so she wonders if there's a girl he's going after, but he says he isn't interested, saying he only sees it as a job, and she wonders if he has delusions of grandeur. So he gets annoyed, and mentions that he just likes older girls. She's happy to hear this, since she's older than him, but she becomes sad when she realizes he's probably talking about Akane. But he notes that he isn't in love with Akane, and he only has feelings for her because she's acting like Ai. Akane thanks Aqua for helping her, since playing Ai's role helped her gain popularity, and he's interested in how she managed to imitate her perfectly. So she reveals that she looked into her, and made assumptions about her, imagining that Ai had a secret child. So he's shocked, wondering how much she understands Ai, and she believes she knows everything about her. He realizes she knows more about Ai than he ever has, thinking he can't let her go, because she can be useful in the future, so as the show is ending, he kisses her. At the farewell party, the rest of the cast wonders if they will date in real life, and Akane says she has never thought about having a love life due to her job. Nobu thinks it's normal for a girl her age to have a boyfriend, and Sho teases Yuki for running through boyfriends, but she reveals she has never had one, since she always put her career first. They discuss how actresses are commonly criticized for having secret boyfriends, so a good thing about dating on a reality show is that it won't turn into a scandal. The director overhears their conversation, and mentions that the staff won't get involved from here on out, so they're free to do whatever they want. He reveals that a few couples from the show even got married, but there are others who kept dating for a few months just to make the relationship look real. Meanwhile, Aqua meets with Kaburagi, who reveals that releasing the raw footage didn't sit well with the higher-ups, and they even thought about suing his agency. but he explains that it was in their contract that they could post candid videos on the show's official social media accounts, so he purposely posted the footage there. Kaburagi praises him for his performance in the show, so he promises to keep his end of the bargain and give him information about Ai. Nobu and Yuki take him back to the party, where Akane talks to him, knowing they have to act like a couple for a while, but she knows he isn't interested in her. He views dating her as a part of his job, but he's interested in her as an actress, and she's happy to hear this. She thinks it's okay if they pretend to be in a relationship, revealing that they already have real couples in the cast, because Yuki and Nobu have started dating. As they head home, Cho teases Aqua that he might start dating Akane for real, because she saw him blushing when Akane was imitating Ai. He wonders how she knows about Ai, so she mentions that she wanted to be an idol, but had to give up because she suffered setbacks. So Aqua asks her to join his agency, because they're looking for members for their new idol group. Aqua takes Cho to meet Miyako, who's surprised that even though she's a popular YouTuber, she still wants to be an idol. She wonders if Cho is signed with an agency, and she reveals that she works for a company, but isn't officially signed with them, so she's allowed to take on other work as part of her contract. Miyako knows she lied about her age, but thinks it's nothing to worry about, since it's normal for people to lie about their age in the entertainment industry. But she tells them her real age is 24, and they can't believe it, because she was just pretending to be a high schooler in the show. Her dream was to become an idol, but she was raised by a single mother who was struggling to make ends meet, so she thought it would be best if she looked for a job, but her mother told her to follow her dreams. She started going to auditions, and even made it to the final screening of an agency, but her mother suddenly got sick. So she started doing part-time jobs to support her family, which enabled her to send her younger brothers to college, and her mother also got better. But at that point, she had turned 23, and she couldn't apply for auditions because the agencies only accepted girls below the age of 20. She realized she couldn't chase her dreams anymore, so she started doing YouTube and portrayed herself as a high schooler. She thinks she can't become an idol anymore, but Ruby tells her it's not true, and Kana starts crying because she has also faced problems because of her age. They welcome Cho to the group, and Aqua asks Kana to take care of them, but she tells him not to talk to her because she's upset that he kissed Akane. The next day in school, Minami wonders how Ruby felt seeing her brother kiss Akane, and she reveals that she had mixed feelings. As they keep talking about the show, Frill overhears them and says she also watched it, saying she found it entertaining. She thought the cast was beautiful, but they're surprised that a celebrity like her is saying this, and she mentions that no one dislikes good-looking people. She says Aqua got her heart racing, and we learn that he's now popular with the girls, but they're just waiting because he's already in a relationship. B. Kamachi's YouTube channel gains 10,000 subscribers, and Cho reveals that she used her channel to advertise their group, so it would have been embarrassing if they couldn't even get a few subscribers. She also wants to post a music video, and Kana explains that Miyako is asking a few artists for help, but they can't do anything until the music is finished. So she tells them to relax for the time being, but Cho wants to practice dancing to B. Kamachi's old songs. After the practice, Kana is tired, wondering why she agreed to become an idol. Aqua gives her some water, and she's about to take it, but she remembers his kiss with Akane, so she tells him to go away. He notices that she has been ignoring him, and even though it seems like he doesn't care, her bad attitude might hurt him eventually. Aqua meets with Kaburagi, who wonders why he wants to know about Ai, so he says he's her fan. But Kaburagi tells him that when a fan learns about what their idol is really like, they always regret it, but he still wants Kaburagi to tell him everything. So Kaburagi reveals that when he first met Ai, she was unprofessional and wasn't friendly with the people around her. To help her, he introduced her to a workshop hosted by Leilali, a theater company that Akane is also a part of. He thinks she fell in love with someone there, and after that, she started taking care of her appearance and even asked him about nice places to eat. He doesn't know who the man was, but he offers to introduce Aqua to the leader of Leilali because he thinks it will help him find the answers he's looking for. He wonders why Kaburagi is doing so much for him, even though he's a failed actor with no accomplishments, but Kaburagi thinks he has potential. He reveals that he's also doing this for selfish reasons, because he wants to put Aqua in his debt, so that if Aqua becomes a famous actor, he will have the advantage in casting him. He adds that he isn't only doing this for Aqua, saying he knows that B. Kamachi is about to be revived, and he believes Cho and Kana have great potential, so he wants to invest in them. Cho tells the others that Kaburagi has offered them to play at the Japan Idol Festival next month, but Kana thinks they should refuse because it's too early for them to perform at such a big stage. She thinks they will embarrass themselves, but Cho mentions that people work their whole lives to perform on a stage like this, so they should grab this opportunity. They all agree to do it, but they must first decide who will be the group's center. Kana doesn't understand why it's a big deal, so Ruby and Cho mention that it's the most important position in the idol group because it gets the most attention. Ruby thinks she should be the one to fill the role, since she's a great dancer, but Cho mentions that she has the experience and media popularity, so she would be perfect for it. But Ruby thinks Kana would be better off filling the role, because she has been on several music programs since she was a child. But Kana doesn't want them to bring up the dark memories of her past, and they ask her to sing for them, but she refuses since she knows she can't sing. The center of the group needs to be a good singer, so Ruby and Cho agree that whoever gets the highest score in karaoke will get the position. They ask Kana to come with them, but she refuses because she thinks the group will never become famous if she becomes their center. She mentions how she did all kinds of jobs to make a living, but she has never had a fan base, so she thinks she isn't fit for the role. But Ruby tells her she's doing fine, saying Aqua thinks she's cute, and he never compliments anyone, but she knows that he also said the same thing to Cho in the reality show. At the karaoke, Ruby and Cho realize they're bad at singing, but they still try to convince each other to become the center. They decide to rest for a bit, and they play one of Kana's songs, but as they play it, they realize that she's actually a great singer. They start making a video, asking Kana how she feels about being their center, but she tells them to turn off the camera, saying she won't be the one to lead them. They mention how her singing wasn't that good in the beginning, but with every new song, she kept getting better. Kana mentions that everyone involved with the songs wants to forget them, but Ruby thinks she was working hard on them because she wanted to meet everyone's expectations. But she tells them that complimenting her won't make her change her mind, and she will never become Bikomachi's center, but they ask her to hear them sing before making a decision. Kana can't believe how bad they are, and is even more surprised that they dream of becoming idols with no singing ability. She still doesn't want to be the center, but ends up saying yes to them, and wonders why she always says the opposite of what she's feeling. Miyako mentions she asked for someone to help them, and Kana gets excited, thinking it might be Aqua, but she's disappointed when Payan arrives. He thinks the first step to performing well is stamina, so he makes them run uphill sprints, and when they become exhausted, he orders them to perform their dance routine 3 times. At night, Payan approaches Kana and asks her if she regrets joining the group, but she says it was her own decision, so there's no regret. But she still thinks she isn't cut out to be an idol, let alone be their center, so Payan wonders why she's against it, even though she's a great singer. She's annoyed that he's praising her without knowing anything about her, but when he mentions a few things about her, she realizes she was wrong. She starts enjoying their conversation, and this makes her think about whether she should put Aqua aside, so that she can go after Payan instead. Ruby talks with Cho about how nice he is, since he's coming to help them every day even though he's busy. Cho thought he would be big since he's a bodybuilder, but seeing him in person, she realizes he's about the same size as Aqua, and Ruby says she would die laughing if she ever heard Aqua doing his duck voice. As they take a break from practicing, Payan gives Kana a water bottle, and she finds him way nicer than Aqua. Cho thinks she really hates Aqua, and she starts listing all the things wrong with him. When she met him as a child, she thought he was an angel, but she never thought he would grow up to be so awful. They start practicing again, and we see that the Payan they're working with is actually Aqua in disguise. He's on a call with Payan, who mentions that the girls have become much better than when they started. He asks Aqua why he had to disguise himself when he could have just worked with them, so he explains that Kana would have rebelled against whatever he said, but Payan thinks she would listen to him even without the mask. The night before the festival, Ruby can't sleep, and Kana tells her that sleeping is important because she won't be able to perform to the best of her abilities if she's sleep deprived. Ruby realizes she's too excited to sleep and wonders why Kana isn't feeling the same, but she's surprised at how Ruby is so positive because a lot of things could go wrong. Ruby mentions how she used to be stuck in her room and thought she would die without experiencing any excitement, but after becoming an idol fan, every day was fun for her. She met the first love of her life, which was Aqua when he was a doctor, and he told her if she became an idol, he would be her fan. She continues to think about him, and she falls asleep, as Kana thinks it's good that she has someone who would support her. But Kana becomes sad, because she has no one like that in her life. She goes out of the room, and she sees Aqua taking off the mask, so she realizes he was acting as Payan all this time. The day of the festival arrives, and Cho is nervous, but Ruby gives her the same lecture about sleep that Kana gave her, and mentions that since they slept well, everything's going to be fine. But Kana didn't get a wink of sleep, because she kept thinking about Aqua, so she heads to the dressing room to take a nap. Miyako stops her, and mentions that they can't use the dressing room next to the stage until it's their turn to perform. So she takes them to the general dressing room, where they're shocked by how many people there are. Miyako asks Kana if she's nervous, but she denies it, telling her she has been doing it since she was a child. She knows she must take care of the others, since she's the only one with experience, but she starts thinking about the dark moments in her life. She recalls that everyone was disappointed in her, and no one was there to support her, so her career fell off, and people started forgetting about her. But she knows she can't allow the negativity to take over her mind, or they will all fail. She's approached by Ruby, who says she's getting nervous, and she wonders if Kana feels the same way. She says she has been doing it for a long time, so she isn't scared, but Ruby knows she's lying, because her hands are cold. Ruby tries to calm her, telling her they're going to be together on the stage, so there's nothing to be worried about. But it's the exact reason why she's scared, saying she isn't afraid of failing alone, because she has failed countless times, but she doesn't want Ruby and Cho to experience the feeling of failure. Ruby notes that she doesn't know about her past, but calls her cute and hardworking, and she's still a rookie idol, so it doesn't matter if they fail, because what's important is that they enjoy their first performance. They get onto the stage, and Kana sees that a decent crowd has turned up to watch them perform, but she already expected this, since they have an influencer in their group. We see that before the performance, Ruby chose the red glow stick to represent herself, while Cho went with yellow, and Kana decided to pick white. Cho says the white glow sticks are considered special, so fans usually fight over them, and Ruby thinks it suits Kana, since she's not an idol fan. As they start performing, Kana sees most of the glow sticks the fans are holding are yellow, realizing they have come to watch Cho, and she thinks if she was their center, they would perform even better. One of the people in the crowd, who is a fan of the old Bikamachi, says the new group isn't like the old one. He thinks Ai's group worked because she was their center, but as he sees Ruby performing, he sees glimpses of Ai in her. After the first song ends, Kana thinks about how Ruby was born to be an idol, and will build a huge fan base. She feels jealous of both Ruby and Cho, because people have come to watch them, but no one is looking at her. During the second song, Kana recalls that for the last 10 years, she has just been asking one person to support her, because nobody believed in her. She has a lot on her mind, but when she sees Aqua cheering for them with all 3 of their glow sticks, it puts her mind at ease, and she performs to the best of her abilities. As they go home after the festival, Kana wonders what Aqua thought of their performance, and he says it was good for their first time. She wants him to give them more credit, but he says they will go on more amazing concerts in the future, so he can't just give them excellent reviews from the start. Miyako asks him about his relationship with Akane, but he reveals that he hasn't seen her since the show, because it was only a work relationship, so they have agreed to meet just to post a few photos online. Kana feels relieved, but she says she knew it was the case, because a girl like Akane would never fall for him, and seeing her acting like this, Cho realizes that she's in love with him. Meanwhile, Akane's manager tells her about her next role, and she's happy because she gets to work with Aqua again. The next day, Kana confronts Aqua about imitating Payan, so he tells her he did it because she wasn't talking to him, and hearing it makes her happy. She starts teasing him for going to such lengths just to talk to her, so he gets annoyed. Ruby and Cho watch them, and Cho thinks they're about to have a fight, but Ruby says if a girl can't stand up to Aqua, their relationship won't last. She mentions that he wasn't always like this, but when he's with Kana, he acts like his old self. Meanwhile, a producer named Sumiaki meets with Kaburagi and tells him about the stage adaptation of a popular anime called Tokyo Blade. He mentions that they have a big budget, so they're working with the Lalai group on the project. They're casting Akane in it, but the Lalai group doesn't really have any good-looking young members, so he asks Kaburagi to help him out. Kaburagi says he knows a few people, but if he introduces them to him, he will need to repay him in the future. but he explains that he's giving them a chance to develop, so Kaburagi will be the one in his debt. Aqua and Akane meet to take pictures for their social media, so the fans think they're still dating. She asks him about Tokyo Blade, which makes him remember his conversation with Kaburagi, and he tells her he will accept the part. They wonder who will play the part of Aqua's comrade, but they're interrupted by Kana, who reveals she has been cast in that role. But she tells them not to post their pictures in real time, or a stalker might arrive at their location. Kana and Akane start insulting each other, and after Kana leaves, Aqua wonders if they know each other. Akane reveals that in their early acting days, Kana used to steal all of her roles, so she trained to get revenge, and thinks they will finally be able to settle their rivalry. Aqua thinks about his mother's last words, and he's determined to catch the man responsible for her death, thinking about doing whatever it takes to achieve his goal. 4 months later, we learn that Bikamachi was able to gain more fans by performing in more shows and uploading videos on YouTube. Aqua has started rehearsing for his new stage play, and Ruby is working hard to reach her goal of performing at a stadium. Aqua reads the script of Tokyo Blade, which is a Bao manga featuring multiple groups fighting for power. Kana is a member of the protagonist's faction, while he and Akane will be playing as the antagonists. The main story of the play is the clash between the two groups, and Aqua realizes he's only going to act with Kana in the last part. Akane wonders if Aqua is sad that he only has a few scenes with Kana, since they appear to have a good relationship, but he's relieved that he doesn't get to act with her, because he finds her scary when she's acting. Akane mentions that it's fun to talk about acting, but he thinks only people who share her passion will agree with her, saying he isn't one of them. He knows that most people who perform on stage love acting, but he's different, because his main goal is to get close to Toshiru, the leader of Lalai, so that he can discover the truth about his mother's killer. They start rehearsing again, and Sumiaki is happy to see no bad actors on the set. He mentions how Kana is known to be an amazing actor, and he expected everyone in Lalai to perform well. He had reservations about Melt, but he has stepped up his acting, and he knows it's Aqua's first time on a set, but he can't see any problems with him. Toshiru notes that Kaburagi always has good recommendations, and Sumiaki is excited to see the showdown between Akane and Kana. But for the time being, he thinks Akane is one step ahead, and she's going to do better than Kana. But Toshiru doesn't believe that will happen, because they have an actor named Himekawa, who is cast as the protagonist of the play. Kana and Himekawa perform a scene together, and she's surprised by how good he is, but he tells her not to hold back. She gets excited, and starts acting even better, and as they act out their scene, everyone's shocked by their performance. After that, Himekawa asks Kana to have dinner with him, and she accepts his offer, because she wants to learn from him. She wants Melt to come with them, because they have multiple scenes together, so she wants to discuss it with them. Toshiru mentions he chose to do the play, because Lalai has been inactive recently, and he wanted to bring excitement. He knows that nobody wants to lose, so everyone must be thinking about how to be better than the others. On the 3rd day of the rehearsal, Akane notes that a month's time is usually set for rehearsal, but a few of the actors aren't available every day, so stand-ins are used in their place, but they still try to join even if it's late, because they're passionate about acting. Akane sees that groups have started forming on set, but Aqua is still sitting alone, so she thinks nobody wants to be with him because of his gloomy aura. Aqua looks at Kana, and he mentions that she adjusts the level of her acting depending on the people she's working with, so she never had the chance to display her real talent. But this time, she's working with the star actor of Lalai, so she doesn't need to hold back. He knows Akane is trying to outshine her, but he thinks she's going to lose, so she becomes annoyed, saying he will also end up losing with his attitude. But he mentions that it was never his goal to win, knowing he isn't as talented. Akane gets off to a bad start in the play, thinking it's because her character has a limited role in the script, and she knows that the fans like the character Kana is playing. There isn't much about her character, so she must fill in the gaps with her imagination, but she struggles to do it because she lacks knowledge. So she looks into her character, realizing she's different in the manga, where she's a kind girl who feels conflicted about killing people. But to reduce the play's runtime, she's now just someone that's eager for battle, and Akane knows she can't do anything about it because the script has been signed off by the author. On the 5th day of rehearsal, the scriptwriter named Goa visits the set, and Aqua thinks the manga's author will be joining them. Akane is still conflicted about the script, so Aqua tells her to ask Goa, but when she refuses, he approaches him himself, saying Akane has questions for him. She asks him about her character, and he mentions that he thought of showing her inner conflict, but decided against it, since it would take up too much time. He tells her there are too many characters, so he had to simplify the script, because the audience may have a hard time understanding the play. He believes that if a play becomes an exact copy of the manga, there would be no need for a scriptwriter, so they have to choose which parts of the manga to highlight. He offers to revise a few parts of the script she has a problem with, but Toshiro thinks there's no need, because the show might suffer if they include more scenes of her character. He mentions that her role isn't to show the depth of her character, but to display her eternal conflict in a way that's easier to understand. The manga author named Abiko arrives on the set along with Kichi, who greets Aqua and Kana, but gets gloomy when Melt tries to greet her, because he made a mess of her story. Akane approaches Abiko, but she hides behind Kichi, saying being around the actors makes her feel nervous. As everyone starts rehearsing, Abiko is surprised by how good they are, but she suddenly stands up and asks Goa to revise the entire script. We see a flashback from the team's introduction day, as Kana mentions that she can't believe Lalai accepted such a play. Aqua thinks there's no need to be nervous, because half of the cast is from outside the company. They come across Melt, who appears to be embarrassed, because he knows his acting wasn't good the last time they worked together, but he explains that he has been practicing, so he thinks he has improved. Sumiaki introduces them to everyone, and Akane is happy that she gets to work with Aqua again. She thinks she was a mess during the reality show, and she's glad he was there to help her, but she explains that theater is her main line of work, so she will be the one to help him this time. He sees that she's confident, but she just wants him to count on her, since they have multiple scenes together. Kana is annoyed by seeing them together, and Melt mentions that they're dating, but she tells him it's only a work relationship, because the fans would have gone against them if they went their separate ways after kissing. He realizes she's acting differently from when they worked together, and Kana mentions it's because she was the lead of the cast. So she didn't want to bring the mood down, but she's now displaying her true personality, and he thinks she should have been more honest with him, because he would have noticed that his acting was terrible. Meanwhile, Kichi meets with Abiko, who used to be her assistant, but she has become a full-time author, and has even surpassed her. Kichi wonders what Abiko wanted to talk about, so she explains that she wants to know how much she can interfere with the adaptation of her manga. She asks Kichi to come with her to watch a rehearsal, and she agrees to do it, but she doesn't think she will be able to do much. She thinks a production team can ruin an adaptation if left alone, because they will do whatever they think is right. But if an author interferes too much, it also causes chaos, so a balance is needed for a great adaptation to be made. Back in the present, Sumiaki thinks it will be difficult to fulfill Abiko's wish, since they got her approval on the script beforehand. She had already told them to revise the script several times, but she was assured that once she sees the performance, she would realize it's a great script, but she tells them she isn't impressed. Goa apologizes to her, and asks her which parts she wants him to revise, but she doesn't think he has even read the manga. So he insists that he has, but this makes her even angrier, because she can't understand how he was able to write such a terrible script after reading her work. She isn't against changing a few plot lines, but she thinks he changed the characters, so she insults him, but Kichi stops her, taking her to another room. We learn that there's no direct communication between the author and the scriptwriter, which is why Abiko's true feelings didn't reach Goa. Disputes arrive even when everyone's doing their best, because the mediators are unable to convey the right information. Abiko tells Sumiaki to let her rewrite the entire script, or she will revoke her permission for the play. She knows it will cost his company a fortune due to breach of contract, but she's willing to pay it, saying she doesn't want Goa to be involved in the play. Aqua wonders if he's okay with it, but he accepts it, saying the scriptwriters have a low status because they're in a situation where if their writing is boring, the fans will criticize them, but if the play succeeds, the credit would only go to the author. Sumiaki explains the situation to Goa, and he tells him to remove his name from the credits, because his pride doesn't allow him to present someone else's work as his own. But Sumiaki explains that he has already published the staff list, so it will cost a fortune just to remove his name. He tells Goa he did a good job, telling him to consider everything as an accident, and he allows Sumiaki to leave his name in the credits. At night, Goa thinks about how he worked hard to make the best play possible, but it still wasn't good enough for Abiko, so he becomes depressed, thinking he lacks talent. The next day, Toshiro announces that rehearsals are paused until they get new scripts, which disappoints Akane because she wanted to practice for the stage-around play. She's surprised when Aqua says he doesn't know what a stage-around play is, and he thinks movies are better than theatrical plays. But she wants to prove him wrong, so she decides to take him to a theater. We see Ruby in her school, as she tells Minami and Frill that Bikamachi has been featured in a magazine, so she thinks she can finally call herself an entertainer. But Frill thinks it's awkward to talk with someone who has a similar career, and Minami agrees, saying Ruby sounds like she's bragging. Frill mentions that an actor invited her to have dinner, but she rejected him because she heard he's a playboy, and Minami knows about his reputation because he asked her colleague to go on a date with him. But Ruby can't keep up with their conversation, realizing she's nowhere near their level. So she asks Miyako to give her a gig, but she explains that they can't perform until Kana's play is over. Kana joins them, and Sho asks her about the rehearsal, so she tells her what happened, saying it might be postponed for weeks. Meanwhile, Aqua and Akane head to a theater, where they watch a play, and Aqua is impressed with the performance, thinking it's amazing. After that, Aqua admits that it was far better than he expected, because the visual effects were impressive, and the seats can be rotated to ensure a smooth transition between scenes. He thinks everything about the show was amazing, saying he can now understand why Akane thinks theatrical plays are superior to movies, and she's happy to hear this, because she was worried that he wouldn't enjoy the experience. Sumiaki suddenly appears, revealing that he was the one who supervised the play, and he tells them he was observing the viewers because he wanted to know if they enjoyed the performance. Aqua asks him about the script, so he explains that Abiko still wants to rewrite all of it. But Aqua thinks Goa did a great job, and she just didn't appreciate it because she doesn't know anything about theatrical plays. Sumiaki reveals that Goa wrote the script for the play they just watched, knowing he's incredibly talented because his work never fails to entertain the audience. So Sumiaki doesn't want to let him go, but he thinks there's nothing he can do to change Abiko's mind. Akane wonders if Goa will be removed from the team, thinking his script was excellent, and Aqua thinks the problem is that he lacks direct communication with Abiko, but Aqua seems to have a plan. The next day, Aqua visits Kichi with his friends, and she starts drinking as she interacts with them. But Akane wonders why Aqua decided to visit her, so he tells her that Kichi might be the only one Abiko will listen to, because creators tend to become arrogant after they achieve success. So they will only take advice from a fellow creator, and he knows that Abiko used to work as Kichi's assistant, so he thinks she might be able to persuade her. Akane thanks Kichi for spending time with them, but she tells them she has plenty of free time because she only releases a new volume every month. Aqua asks her about Abiko, so Kichi tells him she's a weekly artist, and she's incredibly busy, saying that weekly releases are inhumane. Kichi reveals that she's socially awkward, so she never spoke to others, but we learn that an artist can tell an author's personality by looking at their work. So when Kichi read her manga, she realized that Abiko was lonely because she always wanted to have friends, but she was too shy to interact with others. So Kichi started hanging out with her, and they became good friends, but she was able to become popular overnight, and this made her arrogant. Akane thinks her editor needs to warn her, but Kichi reveals that the editor's job is to keep a series going so that the company can milk it until it stops becoming profitable. The author's mental health tends to suffer because of the deadlines, and the editor needs to act as their babysitter so that they won't stop working on the series. But this could affect an author's personality because they aren't getting enough sleep, so they tend to act rude. Akane asks Kichi if she can persuade Abiko, so she reveals that she tried to talk to her after her recent outburst. But Abiko didn't listen to her, reminding her that the live-action adaptation of her manga was trash, so she thinks she can't put her trust in someone else. Kichi thinks there's nothing she can do to help them, but Aqua asks her to give something to Abiko. That evening, Kichi visits Abiko, who's working on her manuscript, saying she's behind schedule. But Kichi realizes her room is a mess, telling her to call her assistant, but she explains that she doesn't have one, saying they couldn't replicate the quality of her work, so she decided to fire them. She reveals that she's been working alone for 2 months, and she hasn't been getting enough sleep because she needs to meet her deadlines. Kichi decides to help her, telling her to hire an assistant because she's working herself to death. But she thinks her readers will leave her if she takes a break, and she reveals that her assistants quit when she tried to train them. But Kichi questions her methods thinking nobody wants to work with her because of her poor communication skills, so they start arguing and they criticize each other's works. The next day, we see that they were able to finish the manuscript, and Abiko apologizes for being rude, saying she's always been sleep deprived, so she can't think clearly. She wonders how she can get along with people, so Kichi tells her to take risks, explaining that she can't do everything alone, and she should learn to accept the final result when she works with others. But she reveals that she hates the live-action adaptation of Kichi's manga, and she starts crying because it was her favorite title. So Kichi cheers her up, saying she's glad Kana's team made the show, because the last episode was beautiful. The next day, Abiko heads to a theater, and we learn that Aqua gave her a ticket to the play he watched, so that she can use it as a reference when she writes her script. After the play, Sumiaki receives news that Abiko is about to leave the theater, so he orders his assistant to call her, because he wants to give her a warm welcome. Abiko arrives, and he asks her what she thinks about the play, so she tells him it was nothing like she expected, and it gave her an idea on how to write her script. He thinks about kissing up to her, but he realizes that this is his chance to persuade her. So he tells her she has the right to change the script, but he warns her that this could lead to a disaster, because they're running out of time, and the actors still need to practice before the performance. So they might use her script without going over it, and he knows she's a genius, but he reminds her that this is her first time writing a script for a theatrical play, so she might mess up. She asks him if he's threatening her, and he knows his job is on the line, because he needs to maintain a good relationship with the publisher to thrive in the industry. But he tells her that he needs to protect the jobs of hundreds of people, and he doesn't want to let them down. He tells her that Goa wrote the script for the play she just watched, telling her to trust him to do his job, and she recalls how Kichi told her to take risks, because she can't do everything alone, so she decides to trust him under one condition. That evening, we see Abiko joining a group video call with Goa, as Sumiaki tells them to make necessary changes to the script. Goa agrees to work with her, as Sumiaki notes that this is a risky move, because their relationship could get worse, but he knows they need to do it to save the project. Abiko suggests focusing on a character's core personality, so Goa starts changing the script, as she realizes that he's actually a great writer. She admits that she liked the theatrical play she watched, and they're able to get along, as they revise the document together. They work all night, and she's impressed by the new script, telling him he did a great job, and she leaves the rest to them. Sumiaki asks for Goa's opinion, so he explains that they got carried away, and Sumiaki realizes they may have ruined the script, but they don't have time to fix it, so he decides to go with it. The actors see the script, as Kana realizes that the scenes rely on their performance to entertain the audience, but the actors from La La Land don't have a problem with it, thinking it's better than the last one. Toshiro joins them, and he begins the rehearsal, as the actors practice for their scenes. Aqua performs with Akane, but Toshiro stops them, telling Aqua to bring out his emotions during the scene, because he's supposed to fall into despair after Akane is seriously wounded. But she's going to survive, so he needs to be happy when she finally wakes up. As he takes a break, Akane joins him, telling him he'll get used to stage plays, but Kana interrupts her, telling her his acting lacks emotions, because he isn't the type to tell everyone how he feels. He realizes that Kana has a point, and he asks her how she cries when she's acting, so she tells him to use his memories, asking him what he would do if his mother died. So he remembers the moment Ayu was murdered, and he becomes tense, but she advises him to remember happier times when he needs to be happy. As the other actors practice for their scenes, he recalls the moments he spent with his friends, so he becomes happy. But a dark figure suddenly appears, telling him he has no right to enjoy himself, because he couldn't save his mother. So he has a panic attack, and Toshiro asks him if he's okay, so he explains that he's just feeling dizzy, saying he needs to take a break until it goes away. Akane follows him, realizing he needs to go home, so she tells him she's going to contact his family, but he stops her, saying he doesn't want Ruby to learn about this, because she has already moved on. But Akane tells him they need to contact someone to pick him up, so he tells her to take him to Taishi. They head to his studio, where Aqua falls asleep, and he can't believe Aqua has a girlfriend. She apologizes for bringing him without notice, but Taishi tells her it's okay, saying he's the only one who knows the situation. He tells her that Aqua was involved in an accident a long time ago, and he has a panic attack whenever he remembers it. So she realizes he has PTSD, and Taishi reveals that he was in counseling for a long time, But he didn't want his family to be worried, so he pretended that he has already recovered, but he still hasn't moved on. Taishi tells her to take care of him, so she stays by his side, as he has a nightmare about his mother's death. The dark figure blames him for what happened, telling him he could have prevented it, and he starts calling Ai's name. Akane hears this, so she realizes that he's connected to Ai, thinking he must be her secret child, and he has PTSD because of his mother's death. He wakes up, and he sees Akane crying, asking her what's wrong, so she explains that she just imagined something scary, thinking it must be the reason why he's always alone. So she hugs him, telling him she's going to stay with him no matter what happens. The next morning, Akane makes breakfast for everyone, but Aqua doesn't eat since he's still upset, so she tries to feed him herself. He gets frustrated and begins to eat, as she thinks about helping him like he helped her in the past. She realizes that he's Taishi's assistant, and Taishi mentions that if he wanted to become an actor, he should have focused on acting from the beginning. She wishes to see the recording of his childhood plays, and he allows it, which surprises Taishi because he doesn't usually allow anyone to see it. While watching the play, Akane mentions that Aqua's acting lacks emotions, and it seems he has already prepared his act. Taishi reveals that he had a panic attack during his performance because he pushed himself too far to show his emotions, and he still finds it difficult to express himself. He's skilled enough to act by connecting performances he has seen before, which is a great talent, but he still believes he's just an amateur. Akane wonders why Aqua joined the theater, but instead of answering, he asks her the same question. She thinks acting on stage is fun, but he tells her she won't understand him even if he reveals the reason. He wonders what she will do if his goal is to kill a higher-ranking person in the entertainment industry, and without any hesitation, she mentions that she will be on his side as his girlfriend, even if they're just a pretend couple. But in return, she wants him to help her defeat Kana and Himekawa, because if he doesn't, she might die of frustration. They show the script to Taishi, so he can help them act, and he mentions that if they want to make an impact, they must do emotional acting, so he tells them to join him after rehearsals. The next day, we see Melt disappointed by his performance, but he suddenly sees Ruby and Minami, who have come to meet Aqua. He reveals that Aqua is left with Akane since rehearsal has finished, so Ruby becomes worried because he always comes home late, even though his rehearsals finish early. Minami thinks he might be spending time with his girlfriend, which disturbs Ruby, but she thinks her brother won't do anything foolish. Ruby needs to use the restroom, and one of the actors named Kamoshida gets Minami's attention. She tells him she's an actress with the Cannon Fire Agency, so he mentions that he has friends there, suggesting they should exchange contacts, but it makes Minami uncomfortable. Melt suddenly shows up, and tells Kamoshida they need to attend an emergency meeting, so he leaves frustrated. But it turns out there's no meeting, and Melt lied to him, so he would stop talking to her. Melt explains that she's a friend of Aqua's sister, and they shouldn't be so reckless, because it can damage their reputation. But Kamoshida laughs at him, and mentions that if Himekawa said such a thing, he would have followed his command. But Melt isn't even talented, and is just there to ruin the show through his bad acting. After he leaves, Melt starts to cry, because he knows he's a terrible actor. Later on, Ruby tells Cho and Kana that she got a famous actor's contact, and it's none other than Kamoshida. But Kana becomes frustrated, because she knows he's a playboy, and even Cho thinks he's a creep, so Kana blocks his contact from Ruby's phone. The next day, Kana arrives for rehearsal, and she finds Akane staring at her, which makes her believe Akane must hate her. She takes out a magazine, and tells everyone she knows who inspired Akane to become an actress. She reveals that Akane looked up to her when she was a child, but unfortunately, Akane's feelings are one-sided, because she doesn't like her. After that, Akane tells Aqua she can't bear Kana, and wonders if he hates her too. He denies it, but he remembers that he also didn't like Kana when he first worked with her, and he mentions that he wanted to kill her because of her annoying personality. Himekawa regrets telling Kana about Akane's childhood idol, and Melt wonders why she hates her, so she explains that it has something to do with their pride as young actors. She believes she's the better actor, saying Akane has a different perspective on acting, which she doesn't like. She thinks that Akane's acting screams how her style is the only one that's correct, and she knows that the people love her, but she mentions that she doesn't want to lose to her. Melt wonders who will win, and Himekawa thinks that Kana will surely be the victor. Kamoshida again reminds Melt of his terrible acting skills, so he asks Kana for help, as Aqua and Akane head to Taishi's home for practice. The day of their performance arrives, and Abiko is nervous, saying she will blame herself if it flops, but Goa believes that its success depends on the actor's performance, since the script is good. The audience waits for the performance to begin, as Taishi notes that he has put all his effort into training Aqua and Akane, and he can't wait to see them perform. But he's upset that he hasn't found any solution to treat Aqua's trauma, thinking the performance is doomed if he experiences a mental breakdown on stage. The more emotional he tries to act, the riskier it will get, but Taishi hopes for what's best, because he thinks Aqua is a good actor. Akane and Kana meet backstage, and challenge each other to win the battle through their performances. Meanwhile, Aqua remembers his mother, and he experiences another mental breakdown, but he takes control of himself, and gets ready to perform. The play begins with a narration that there was a huge war in the past, where renowned warriors fought for their ambitions. But nobody won the fight, and the 21 swords that carried the world's fate were scattered in the Far East. Himekawa plays the role of a traveler named Blade, who's the protagonist of the play, and one day, he finds a glowing sword, but before he can take it, Kana arrives to stop him. She's playing as a sword master named Tsurugi, who tells him to leave the allied sword if he doesn't want to fight her. He chooses to fight, so she charges in, but he blocks her attack, and asks her about the allied sword. So she reveals that the sword gives its wielder several powers, and the owner who's considered the strongest by the allied swords will have the power to conquer an entire nation. It ignites Blade's desire to acquire the sword even more, and he tells her he wants to become a king. So she becomes angry, and she strikes at him again, but he counters, breaking her sword, and she begs him to spare her life. He orders her to say she's weak, and he's stronger than her, so she surrenders, and becomes his subordinate in the journey. They start to travel towards Shinjuku, where people live in dungeons. She reveals that if Blade defeats the strongest person in the city named Kazami, he will become the ruler of Shinjuku. He wonders if she also wants to become a king, but she explains that she can't, because she lost to him. She reveals that when a sword master is defeated in a battle, he can either choose death, or become the victor's subordinate, and she tells him to make her a minister when he becomes a king. Upon arriving, they meet Melt, who plays Kazami, and he attacks Blade, but he's no match for him, and he gets knocked down with a single blow. He's surprised by Blade's power, so he gives up, and asks Blade to make him his general when he becomes a king. Kazami mentions that people who live in dungeons were kicked out by the demons in Shibuya, who are much stronger than ordinary demons, so Blade's next plan is to slay all of them. The first act of the play ends, and the second act begins, which mainly focuses on a battle between Blade's team and the demons from Shibuya. Kazami starts fighting Kamoshida's character named Munmei, and Melt compares himself to Kamoshida, who is a highly talented actor. He knows that they're both famous, but Kamoshida's acting skills are on another level. In the past, Sumiaki thanked Kaburagi for casting Kamoshida into the play, because he's extremely talented, and the other actors on set learned from him. But he was unsure of casting Melt, since he only had looks and lacked talent. But Kaburagi explained that Melt is a hard-working person, so he decided to give him a chance. We see Melt as a student when his senior took advantage of him, making him famous, and he got attention from girls. He used to be considered extremely funny in school, and people had high expectations from him, but in reality, he did part-time jobs to make ends meet. One day, he got an offer to act in a play based solely on his good looks, and he decided to go with the flow. Back in the present, Kichi notes that Melt is different from his manga character, and she's disappointed that he was chosen to act in the play. He recalls Kamoshida's remarks that he's a terrible actor, and remembers the time when he saw his own scene, and hated it. He knew that the other amazing actors had to lower their level to match his acting, which ruined their show. Munmei blocks Kazami's attack, and throws his sword away, leaving him helpless, and the audience seems unsure of Melt's acting. He remembers when he requested Aqua to give him advice, so he told him to focus on the most important scene of his character, which involves his fight against Munmei, and take advantage of his weaknesses. The audience already has low expectations for his acting, so he should surprise them with a hidden move. He should initially behave as if he's weak, and suddenly act like a pro, which will grab the audience's attention. Like a weak student in a class who gets bullied. But one day, he impresses everyone with his hidden strength, and gains popularity. On the stage, Kazami copies gymnastic moves from the original manga's character, and he gets his sword back, surprising everyone. Kana wonders if Aqua helped him, but he mentions that he only gave him advice, and what they see on stage is Melt's hard work. Kamoshida is surprised to see him acting exactly like the character in the manga, as he recognizes he needs to bring out his emotions because it's the highlight of his scene. He thinks about the time he struggled to act during rehearsals, since he wasn't expressive. Akane tried to analyze other characters so she could give her best, but he couldn't even focus on his own character. He started to study Kazami and tried to get to know him as a person, so he realized that Kazami is similar to him because he thought he was strong, but he was actually a loser. We return to the present as Kazami brings out his frustrated emotions and attacks Munmei with all his strength, thinking he needs to give his best in the next 60 seconds of the play. Melt uses his past memories to bring out the anger and frustration, which is perfect for the scene. Kazami is finally stabbed by Munmei, and he falls down, but Melt's exceptional performance earns him a huge round of applause, and Kichi tears up. After their act, Melt is afraid of how Kamoshida will react to his performance, but Kamoshida praises him, and he thanks Aqua for his advice. Kana's scene with Kamoshida is next, where Tsurugi confronts Munmei for hurting her companion. He tells her she can't enter his territory, but he realizes he messed up the introduction of the Shibuya group because the sound effects overlapped his voice. So he thinks about saying it again, but Kana improvises and covers up his mistake. Tsurugi mentions that they don't care about the Shibuya group and will slay every demon to rule the land. Kamoshida and Toshiro are impressed by Kana's acting, and Kamoshida thinks he has never met anyone so easy to work with. Munmei runs away, saying the battle isn't fair because they're a team and he's alone, while Tsurugi tells him to come back. Aqua plays the role of Munmei's companion Taki, and Munmei tells him that the Shinjuku group is coming after them, thinking they should do something about it. But Taki mentions that he's the right hand of Princess Saya and will only follow her orders. They consult the princess, who's being played by Akane, and she thinks her entire monologue was cut short by the scriptwriters, but she still needs to express her dignity. Princess Saya announces war against the Shinjuku group, knowing it will cause bloodshed, but they still need to fight. Kana is stunned by Akane's performance, and thinks she conveys the princess's true emotions, which were cut in the script. The day of the battle between the two groups arrives, and Blade leads his men to slay the demons, but he's stopped by two opponents. Kazami's companions head forward to fight them, telling Blade to go into the city and fight the remaining demons. They tell Kazami to settle his fight with Munmei, and he promises to take him down. When they arrive at the princess's castle, they're met by Munmei and Aqua, so they prepare to fight. Meanwhile, Tsurugi runs towards the castle and thinks of fighting Princess Saya, so she calls her out, and Saya shows up. As Saya speaks, Kana thinks Akane's acting displays her arrogance, so she becomes annoyed, and she tells Saya to draw her sword. Akane thinks she won't lose to Kana in acting because she has waited a long time to act against her on the same stage. In her childhood, she was inspired by Kana's acting so much that she would watch her scenes on repeat and think about how talented she was. Akane thinks she's the best actress and notes that she looked confident even when she was talking to grown-ups. So Akane's parents suggests that she join the theater, and she thinks she isn't good enough, but her parents told her she might become friends with Kana if she joined. So she agrees to be an actor and starts working hard to become like Kana, even copying her looks and haircut to be more like her. We see her at an audition, which Kana also participated in, and a staff member mistakes Akane for Kana since she has completely imitated her. He accidentally reveals that Kana was already selected, and the audition is just a formality, which confuses Akane. Kana suddenly shows up, and Akane tells her she's a huge fan, asking her if what the man said is true. Kana confirms it, and she's okay with it because she believes anyone could play a minor role. But shows are about making revenue and ratings, which makes her the best choice among others, since she's already known. Akane tears up, and Kana throws away her hat, saying she hates kids who imitate her. Akane wonders why Kana acted this way, but as she grows up, she realizes that Kana wanted everyone's attention, and she was forced by the grown-ups to match others. Akane hates Kana because her original acting was selfish, but she ended up changing her style to get along with people. Akane still thinks she should be selfish and stop adjusting to others. But if she can't go back to her old style, Akane will do it herself, and she plans to act in her own unique way to make herself stand out. The princess attacks Tsurugi with her sword, but she blocks it, and both continue to battle against each other. Kana thinks everyone's eyes are stuck on Akane's character since she's doing such an incredible job, and Kana thinks about taking her on, but she remembers her past, so she spaces out. Akane is surprised to see Kana surrender herself, but Taishi thinks she made the right decision, because if one actor is standing out, the others should help her, thinking it's actually better for the play. Kana doesn't let her ego get the best of her, and signals Akane to take the lead on stage. She's heartbroken, because she didn't want Kana to act badly, and she just wanted to have a fair on-stage competition with her. After the scene ends, Akane sits down and thinks about what just happened, realizing she was being selfish because she was trying to steal the spotlight. She starts crying as Aqua arrives, and he mentions that he liked the way Akane stood out from the others on stage. She reveals that she doesn't want to win against Kana when she isn't fighting back, wanting to defeat her when she's at her absolute best. Aqua thinks Kana truly shines when she tries to draw attention to herself, and it's the best moment to defeat her. Akane wants to see her return to her old acting style, and Aqua agrees to help her. Kamoshida and Melt's characters start fighting, and Kamoshida thinks that Melt's moves have become much better. But his acting is still lacking, and Melt notes that his emotions are as strong as Kamoshida's, so he thinks he can match his performance. Meanwhile, Akane takes all the spotlight on stage, and Himekawa asks Kana why she didn't even compete with Akane. So she reveals that if all characters do as they wish, the stage won't come together, and someone needs to balance things out. Kana asks him why he holds his glasses in to read the script, so he mentions that he doesn't want to ruin his makeup. She suggests he wear contact lenses, but he reveals he's scared of them. She thinks wearing contact lenses for him is necessary, because he can't see the expressions of the other actors. But he thinks their expressions aren't important because they can communicate through their movements. He mentions that the audience can't see actors' expressions from afar, so it's fine if he doesn't see them. She wonders why he's reading the script again, and he reveals that he will improvise the next scene against Akane, so she doesn't outshine him. He wonders if she can play along with him, and she reminds him of her impressive acting skills. After that, it's Himekawa's scene with Aqua, where they both fight as heads from the Shinjuku and Shibuya groups, and Taki asks Blade if he has a vision behind his fight against demons. Blade mentions that he might have a vision, but he isn't sure if he wants to express it in words, so it's better to talk through their swords. He jumps in the air to unleash his attack on Taki, as Aqua thinks that Himekawa's acting skills are so good that his every move carries emotion. Aqua doesn't show any expression and defends himself from the attack with a poker face, irritating Himekawa, who urges him to act emotionally. But he thinks Himekawa is already good at expressing emotions, so he won't put himself in the same ring, and he will instead suppress his emotions to stand out on the stage. Another actor in the backstage analyzes Aqua and Himekawa's acting, and he mentions that Aqua made a clever move by suppressing his emotions. Himekawa tells him he's boring, asking him to enjoy himself, but Tsurugi suddenly makes a surprise entry on stage, and Saya attacks her from behind. Blade warns Tsurugi to be careful, since he can tell Akane is frustrated, because Kana isn't following the script. He saves Tsurugi from Saya's attack, and throws her into Taki's arms, making Kana confused. Aqua surprisingly improvises his scene without any difficulty, and tells Tsurugi she needs to leave the battlefield, because her body isn't made to fight against a man. He explains that men risk their lives to protect women, and it doesn't work the other way around. Kana realizes Aqua is excellent at improvising, and Tsurugi warns Taki to stop looking down on her just because she's a woman, but he says he won't lay a hand on her. Taki steps aside and stops fighting, making Kana realize it's Aqua's attempt to give her the spotlight, and she thinks about the time she did the same with Akane, making her the center of attention. He thinks Kana doesn't need to balance things out every time, because he can do it for her and play along with any improvised scene she throws at him. We learn that Kana became an actress because it was her mother's dream to become an entertainer, but she entrusted that dream to her daughter when she couldn't achieve it herself. When Kana became famous, her mother developed connections with celebrities, and she was invited to their house parties, which she really enjoyed, and Kana was also happy. She was praised by directors because she had no thought of her own and acted the way they wanted. But when her popularity started to fade away, it troubled her mother, and she would pressure the staff to increase Kana's screen time or promote her to any random director. There were times when her mother even lashed out at her, and she thinks the reason why her father fell for another woman was because he was fed up with her mother's attitude. Kana sacrificed herself to make her mother happy and learned how to work with others in order to survive in the industry. But she realized she wasn't a genius, but merely an actor easy to work with, and it's why she was preferred over talented actors. She gave up on becoming the lead and started learning how to make grown-ups happy, and even to this day, she tells Aqua there's no point in shining a spotlight on her. He mentions that Tsurugi is a childlike character who loves to fight, so it only makes sense to give her attention at the moment, but Kana thinks it will cause trouble for the other characters. He explains that everyone wants to see her acting in her own way, and he will be the one to back her up, so she listens to him and begins acting the way she likes. She attacks Taki with her sword, catching the audience's attention, and they're impressed with her skills. Even Kaburagi is shocked, and he recalls that everyone in the past admired her ability to cry, but what actually made her famous was her lively acting. Everyone is amazed to see her act that way, and Akane thinks her childhood idol is back, but she realizes it's the same Kana she wanted to defeat earlier, so now it's her chance. Tsurugi attacks Taki, throwing his sword away, and she tells Blade to attack him, so he jumps in the air, ready to finish him off, but Saya takes the blow for him. The crowd is hooked as Taki falls into despair, and Blade wonders if he has accepted his defeat since his woman is dead. So he explains that he was fighting for the princess, and he couldn't protect her, so he has lost his reason to fight. We see Aqua talking to Taishi, who believes that his panic attacks were triggered when he was guilty of enjoying his acting, and his guilt towards his mother's death is another reason behind it. Aqua is shocked that he knows about what happened, and Taishi explains that he has known for a long time because Aqua and Ruby had an abnormal attachment to Ai. He knows why Aqua wanted to be in the industry, but he tells him to slow down and focus on getting treatment first. But Aqua doesn't care if anything happens to him, and he still wants to pursue acting because avenging his mother is the only reason for his survival. Taishi tells Aqua that if he wants to act, he must never enjoy it, but instead make it painful for him so that he won't have a panic attack. Taki suddenly grabs his sword, and he attacks Blade, who manages to defend himself. But he continues to attack, as he thinks about his mother and Saya dying. His sword falls from his hands, but he shocks everyone as he suddenly bites Blade. He thinks about defeating the top performers to get the recognition he needs in the industry, because he needs to become the best actor to get his revenge. In a flashback, we see Aqua with Ai, as they watch the movie he starred in, and she tells him his acting was amazing, thinking he can become the best actor in the world. Blade pushes Taki back, but he fights on, as Kana notes that Aqua's acting is perfect, because he appears to be drowning in anger and sadness. We learn that he's thinking about his mother, and the dark figure tells him to suffer, saying he doesn't have the right to enjoy his life until he gets his revenge. He realizes that the dark figure is his inner self, and it represents his negative emotions, but he's able to maintain his composure, and he uses his emotions to improve his acting. Taki charges in, and he manages to hit Blade, but he endures the blow, and he summons lightning to defeat Taki. He announces that the battle is over, and the others arrive, realizing Saya is already dead. But Tsurugi thinks they can still save her, and she recognizes her scabbard, saying it can transfer the owner's wounds to another person. But instead of using it to protect herself, Saya transferred everyone's wounds to her, and Kazami mentions that he's no longer injured, realizing that she was willing to sacrifice her life so that everyone would survive the war. Tsurugi and Blade show everyone how the scabbard is supposed to be used, and it creates a bright energy, which revives Saya. Aqua imagines that his mother was able to survive, and he starts crying as he hugs Saya. After the play, the other performers compliment Akane, saying she's a brilliant actor. But she thinks she isn't good enough, and she starts crying, thinking Kana and Hamakawa are better than her. Kana mentions that she's tired, and Ruby tells her she was great, but she thinks she lacks talent, thinking Akane's acting is on another level, because it helped Aqua bring out his emotions. We see Kaburagi talking to Toshiru, who thinks all of the actors performed well, and Kaburagi mentions that Kana surpassed his expectations. He explains that she has the star factor, because everyone thought she looked cute, but Toshiru thinks Akane has more potential, saying her acting was brilliant during the final scene. We see Sumiaki watching the audience leave the theater, as his assistant tells him that the publisher wants to talk to him. But he wants them to wait, saying he's enjoying the moment, and he realizes that everyone's happy, so he thinks the performance was great. We see Aqua in the bathroom, and he looks at the DNA test results, realizing he now has a lead. The actors gather on stage at the end of their performance, and we see that Abiko is happy, realizing that the script she made with Goa was perfect. After that, we see that the performers are exhausted, but they decide to drink together, as Akane mentions that she'll take care of the reservation. Kana mentions that she won't join them, because she hates going to parties, but Aqua tells her he's going, so she immediately changes her mind. After that, we see everyone drinking together, and we see that Kana is already drunk. Akane gives Aqua food, and he thinks Toshiru might be connected to his mother, so he decides to talk to him, asking him how long he's been working in Lalai. So he reveals that he's one of the founding members, saying Lalai was originally a circle mate in an acting school. He reveals that it was made to accommodate actors from outside the school, but he mentions that they had a hard time inviting people at first, saying they had to start with the human resources they gathered from workshops. But he mentions that it was a failure, so Aqua asks him for details, but he refuses to say anything, saying it was a mistake they made in the past. Himakawa decides to help Aqua because he's also curious, and he invites Toshiru to drink with him. We see that they went to a bar, as Himakawa tells a girl to serve Toshiru. He knows that Toshiru will drink anything a girl pours into his glass, and he plans to get Toshiru drunk so that he will reveal his past. Himakawa explains that the servers are actually models and idols who are struggling to make ends meet, so they decided to work in secret. He adds that only members are allowed in the bar, so the girls risk being exposed less, and he admits that he likes to spend time with them because he thinks they're cute. Toshiru asks him why he isn't drinking, and he reminds him that he was the one who raised him, telling him to drink up. Aqua asks them how they're related, so Himakawa reveals that he was born in an orphanage, and Toshiru decided to take him in. Toshiru explains that those who lack something are the best, because they're eager to learn new skills, and he realizes that Aqua and Himakawa act the same way, thinking they're both unique. He mentions that Aqua's acting during the final scene was perfect, saying he could see his true emotions, but he thinks it's because he was the one who tutored him, and he suddenly passes out. So Himakawa realizes that his plan has failed, and he apologizes to Aqua, promising to get Toshiru to talk another time. But Aqua tells him he doesn't mind, mentioning that he also wanted to talk to him, and he shows him the DNA test results, which reveals that they have the same father. Aqua asks Himakawa to tell him about their father, but he thinks they shouldn't talk about it there, because he still needs to put Toshiru to bed since he's drunk. So they head to Himakawa's apartment, where he asks Aqua about his mother, but he refuses to answer, so Himakawa realizes she must be an entertainer. He asks Aqua if he knows who Eri Himakawa is, so he mentions she was the female lead in a drama series, but Himakawa reveals that she was his mother, saying she committed suicide with their father. He mentions that their father Seijiro was already married before Aqua was born, but he had a thing for picking up talented entertainers, thinking their father did it to hide his own lack of talent. Himakawa reveals that he always hated him, which is why he uses his mother's name when he performs on stage. He thinks Aqua is also a womanizer like their father, because he saw him seducing Kana and Akane, but Aqua explains it's not like that, but Himakawa tells him to make up his mind about one of them, before he ends up in a situation like their father. The next day, Ruby scolds Aqua for spending the night out, but he explains that he was with Himakawa. He thinks about how his father is already dead, and he has no idea what to do next, since revenge was all he was thinking about. He gets a call from Kana, who yells at him for leaving the party, and she thinks he went with Akane, but he assures her that he just went to Himakawa's apartment. After that, he checks his phone, realizing he received 3 messages from Akane, who tells him he shouldn't drink since he's a minor. But he wonders if he can live his life happily, because the person he has been chasing is already dead. Cho tells Akane and Ruby that their channel has reached 20,000 subscribers, but they don't care, so she becomes annoyed, thinking they should give her a little credit. She explains that there are 300,000 channels in Japan, and most of them don't make any money, so they should appreciate the fact that they have 20,000 subscribers. But Kana mentions that they only earned 100,000 yen in the whole month, saying it would be better if they get part-time jobs. So Cho admits that they're financially struggling, saying it will continue until their channel grows. She tells them they're going to shoot a room tour, and Kana is against it, but when Cho tells her that the personal belongings they show can be claimed as expenses, she immediately agrees to it. They start to film Kana's room, and Cho realizes she bought a number of expensive items, but she thinks there shouldn't be a problem because she's using her own money. She thinks that to be a great entertainer, she needs to surround herself with expensive items because she doesn't want other people to think she's cheap. Cho notes that even though Kana claims to be a struggling actress, she still lives in a nice apartment, and she explains that it's because she manages her money effectively. She thinks all entertainers should live in an apartment with good security because the scariest thing about their line of work is the weird fans. At night, Ruby wonders if she should take down Ai's posters from her room before filming because it might reveal that she's her mother. Ruby thinks about how she selected the name Bikamachi for their group since she wanted to carry out Ai's dream, and she also hoped Goro would show up after hearing the name because she tried looking for him but could never find him. The next day, Cho reveals that they're going to film a music video, saying it's the easiest way to get views, and she mentions that if one of their videos goes viral, they can use it to promote themselves. Kana is worried that it will cost a fortune to make the video, but Cho mentions that she knows someone who runs a design firm in the countryside, who will give them a discount if they go there to film it. Kana explains that she can't go until her play ends, but Cho tells her they will go after that, and they will make it a 3-day trip, which makes her think about all the time she will be spending with Aqua. Cho suggests they make an original song, because they've only been using Bikamachi's old songs, but they're a decade old, so they need a song that targets the new generation. She asks Miyako about the song they placed an order for, which makes Ruby wonder who she asked to make it. Miyako explains that she stayed quiet to surprise them, but she mentions that she already asked a man named Haruma, who worked on many of Bikamachi's old songs, which surprises everyone. Aqua realizes that his mother also had involvement with music artists, and he plans on getting close to Haruma so he can get more information, but he remembers that he doesn't need to do that anymore. Ruby is excited about singing the new song, but Miyako reveals that even though she gave Haruma a deadline, he still hasn't delivered it. Ruby thinks they should press him for it, but Miyako thinks they should be thankful that he's even writing the song for them. She mentions that she already sent him an email, but Ruby starts to throw a tantrum, telling her to call him, but she thinks there's no need for them to be in a hurry. Ruby tells her they can't stay as idols forever, because Kana will soon go back to full-time acting, while Cho will be 30, which hurts her feelings since she still has 5 more years, but Ruby notes that it's not a lot of time. Miyako calls Haruma, but he explains that his schedule is packed, and he doesn't want to write a half-hearted song for them. She tells everyone he hasn't written the song, and Kana notes that when a composer is young, they can write countless songs by relying on impulse and passion. But after working for a long time, they have no motivation, because they have already written everything they wanted to write. Haruma thinks about retiring, but he knows that he has nothing to do if he quits music. He gets a video message from Ruby, telling him she's excited that he's writing a song for them, which motivates him, and he prepares to write a masterpiece for her. Meanwhile, Tokyo Blade concludes its run, and Aqua has no idea what to do next. Ruby invites him to accompany them to Miyazaki, where they're going to film their music video, and he remembers it's where he used to work in his previous life, so he accepts her invitation. Kana tells him the trip will be for 3 days, wondering if he has a rolling suitcase, and he tells her he doesn't, so she explains that it's an important item for an entertainer, offering to help him buy one. The next day, Kana thinks about what clothes to wear, but she realizes that she's late for her meeting with Aqua. She thinks he's going to tease her because she's late, but she gets a message from him, saying he's waiting for her in the coffee shop. She apologizes when she gets there, saying it was because her taxi got stuck in traffic, but he tells her it's okay, revealing that he bought a coffee for her. She mentions that she will pay for it since she made him wait, but as she goes to the counter, she sees a man paying for his girlfriend, and when Aqua pays for her coffee, she starts imagining things. They go to buy the suitcase, and when he chooses a white one, it makes her blush, because it's the same color as her glow stick. He takes her bag so she won't need to carry it, and she tells him it's part of her outfit, but he tells her to stop talking. At night, as Aqua is about to go home, Kana mentions that she's hungry, so they go to a restaurant, and she mentions that it's difficult to find a spot there since it's always packed. But she's surprised because he already made a reservation, which makes her wonder why he was about to go home. She can't believe how good he is at escorting a girl, and he thinks it's because he was raised in a family that runs a talent agency, but she thinks he must be rizzing up a ton of other girls, but he tells her he just wanted her to have a good time. But she asks him about his relationship with Akane, and he thinks it's time he gave her a clear answer. He reveals that he used to think he shouldn't fall in love, but he has changed his mind, and she reminds him that loving someone is a basic human right. After that, Aqua calls a taxi, which makes Kana wonder where he's going to take her, but she's disappointed since he just drops her home. She looks at the pictures that she took, but she becomes sad when she sees an old picture of Aqua and Akane, and she wonders what he will tell her. The next day, Aqua meets with Akane, and he sees her putting a filter on her pictures, so he wonders why she does it, saying that guys don't like it. He knows he needs to figure out what to do with his relationship with her, because he no longer needs to look for his father, so he doesn't need her anymore. Akane mentions his trip to Miyazaki, and he asks her if she travels much, so she reveals that her family goes overseas for vacation, but she doesn't usually travel within Japan. She never went on school trips due to her work, and she doesn't know how it feels to travel in a big group. Aqua invites her to go out with the other cast members of Tokyo Blade, saying he needs to talk to her about something, which makes her realize he plans to break up with her. But she doesn't want to keep thinking about it during the trip, so she tells him they should talk it over immediately. He mentions that he doesn't want to tie her down, because their relationship started on a show, and it isn't real. She thinks he's right, since they only kissed one time on the show, and they haven't even held hands. But she knows he kept her with him, because he was trying to use her, so she wonders if he doesn't need her anymore. They arrive at the bridge where he stopped her from taking her own life, and she tells him she wasn't angry when he kissed her on the show, because she knew he had a kind heart. He tells her she's falling for his deception, and he can't share anything more, because she won't understand, but she tells him to express his real feelings. She thinks he doesn't believe their relationship is real, because they aren't physical with each other, but he assures her it's not the case. He wonders if she really has feelings for him, and she instantly says yes, but after thinking about it, she isn't so sure. He tells her he has never felt such feelings from her, and she notes that it's because she hasn't dated anyone, so she has no riz. She tells him that even though she doesn't understand what their relationship is, she still wants to help him, because he told her he needs to kill someone. He reveals that he was looking for his father because he was responsible for his mother's death, and he thought his father was in the entertainment industry, so he decided to start acting. He reveals that he spent 5 million yen on DNA testing, but in the end, all he found was his half-sibling, and he learned that his father was already dead. He mentions that even though it's not the result he wanted, he's relieved because he can finally live his life in whatever way he likes. Akane suddenly says goodbye to him, but she gets a strange feeling, and she thinks that deep down, he wanted his struggle to end, which is why he missed such an obvious loophole, that Seijiro couldn't be his father, because their hair is a different color, and the timing doesn't match his mother's death. But she knows that if he realizes it, he will go back to living his life for revenge. Meanwhile, Ruby goes to visit Ai's grave, but as she leaves, she walks past a man, and we learn that he's their real father. Hiruma completes the song, and everyone likes it, but Kana feels guilty, because she thinks Ruby and Cho will ruin it with their singing. At night, a woman named Inomo offers to film a video for Hiruma's song, along with the other music video that they had already planned. Cho wonders if it will be possible due to their schedule, but Inomo thinks they can finish the filming of the other video within a day. She mentions that if Cho is okay with this sort of video she's going to make, they won't need much preparation time. On the day of the trip, Kana is annoyed, because Akane is joining them, but Ruby is happy since she's her fan. She wonders why a pretty girl like Akane is with Aqua, but she wants to call Akane her sister, because she thinks Aqua will marry her, which makes Kana cry. They reach their destination, and Inomo welcomes them, but Kana wonders why she bases her company there, so she explains that it's because she loves nature. She tells them the place is also famous because the shrine of the goddess of performing arts is there, and people in show business come to worship her. Kana thinks they should visit the shrine, but Inomo mentions that they need to film 2 music videos first. Everyone goes to the studio, while Aqua tells Akane he's going to the hospital, which makes her wonder if he's sick, but he notes that it's because he and Ruby were born there. They reach the hospital, and Aqua asks the receptionist about Goru, but she tells him they couldn't find him, so he's considered to have already resigned. Akane wonders what Aqua wanted to check in the hospital, so he mentions that a person he knew worked there. As they walk through the town, he remembers the time he spent with Ai, and he goes to the cliff where he died. He asks Akane if she thinks the body of a pet from 15 years ago could be found there, and she tells him its bones could be recovered if it had been buried, but wild animals would have eaten the remains if it was exposed. She thinks Aqua has a cute side since he's trying to look for his old dog, and he thinks he shouldn't go out of his way to find his body. He takes her to his old house, saying it belonged to someone he knew, but they have already passed away, which makes her think the person must be important to him, because he came all the way there to see it. He tells her about Goru, saying his mother hid her pregnancy from her parents, so she tried to give birth at home, but she lost too much blood and passed away, and since his father was unknown, he ended up with his grandparents. But he didn't get along with his grandfather, and he felt guilty because he was born at the expense of his mother's life. He decided to go to medical school, which made his grandmother think he wanted to become an obstetrician because of what happened to his mother, but his wish was to become a surgeon. We see that when Serena was about to pass away, she gives him a keychain she got from Ai's concert, telling him to cherish it. Meanwhile, Ruby is having lunch, but she's surprised Anomo is still filming her, and she tells Ruby that with idol music videos, it's common to film both a dance and a drama part. Most of the video will be of them dancing, but she also needs to include shots that show them being cute. She tells Kana to look at the camera like it's her crush, and seeing her reaction, she teases her, saying there must be a boy that she really likes. Ruby is impressed by the number of staff members they have, and Kana reveals that the project costs more than 5 million yen, so they should be thankful to Miyako that she's spending so much money on them, even though they don't bring in profits. Aqua and Akane arrive at the studio, and Sho tells them Ruby and Kana have almost finished filming their drama parts, so they just need to shoot the music portion. Aqua wonders why Cho isn't working, and she mentions that minors aren't allowed to work past 10, but since she's older, she can film her parts later at night. Kana shows Aqua the dress they chose for the filming, and Akane doesn't like it, which makes him remember she's against Kana's idol work. He hopes they don't fight, but Akane adjusts Kana's outfit, and even though she acts like she doesn't care, she's actually happy to see Kana in such a dress. Kana asks Aqua if she looks cute, but he just tells her that she passes, which annoys her. As they watch Bikamachi practice their dancing, Akane wonders if Kana will be successful as an idol, and Aqua believes she will, so Akane tells him he can't date her anymore. She mentions that at the moment, Kana isn't that popular, so it isn't a problem. But once she becomes famous, she can't be seen on a date in public, which makes him realize he needs to be careful, or she might end up like Ai. Anomo tells everyone other than Sho to return to the inn, and Aqua tells Akane to take care of Ruby, since he's going to stay there a little longer. As they head to the inn, Ruby gets close to a crow, but it takes her key and flies away. Akane thinks they should just apologize to the innkeeper for the lost key, because they might get lost if they keep going after the crow. But Ruby reveals that she's familiar with the area, since she was born there. She asks Akane if she's interested in becoming an idol, but she thinks she has no talent besides acting. She wonders if Ruby wants to become an actor, and when she says she's interested in it, Akane offers to teach her, but she mentions that she wants to focus on becoming an idol before going after anything else. She mentions wanting to have a concert in a stadium, thinking it might be her chance to reunite with Goru. She asks Akane how much of an age gap is okay in a relationship, but she thinks mental age is what matters more. Ruby talks about Goru, and she notes that he's the one who gave her the will to live, but she doesn't know where he is. She mentions that he always evaded her when she said she wanted to marry him, but she mentions that she still wants to be with him. They see the crow going behind a shrine, and as they follow it, Ruby is shocked as she finds a body, and she sees the keychain she gave to Goru, realizing it's his body. The police investigated after that, and after Ruby answers their questions, she returns to the inn with Miyako. She tells Ruby they can cancel tomorrow's shooting if she isn't feeling well, but she mentions that she's fine. She goes to Akane's room, but she isn't there because she's out with Aqua. He apologizes to Akane because she wouldn't have faced such an awful situation if he didn't invite her on the trip. She mentions that it's not his fault, but he keeps apologizing, so she notes how he's trying to shoulder everything by himself again, saying it isn't his fault because he can't protect everyone. She mentions that the police said it was a murder, so he shouldn't blame himself. But he tells her that he knew she could find the body, which is why he fed her information, and she's shocked hearing this. He was fine with the body remaining undiscovered, since it had nothing to do with him anymore, but deep down, he still hoped it would be found. He tells her he has been using her for his benefit, but she already knows, and she's happy because she can finally put her feelings into words. She knows he's kind, and he always tries to shoulder everything on his own, so she wants to help him, but she understands he's better off without her. She starts to cry, saying she wanted to talk things over during the trip, because she thought they could part ways on a happy note. But seeing her like that melts his heart, so he wipes her tears, and he kisses her. The next day, Ruby goes to the hospital, and she remembers Goru as she looks at the keychain. But a girl appears behind her, saying she shouldn't have taken the keychain from the body. The girl wonders if she had a close relationship with him, but Ruby tells the girl she's too young to understand her feelings. She tells the girl not to bother her since she's in a bad mood, and she starts to leave, but the girl mentions that she knows what Ruby wants to learn. The girl notes that a long time ago, an idol gave birth there in secrecy, and Goru was the doctor who took care of her. She mentions that he suddenly disappeared, and the day he went missing was when the idol gave birth. The girl also mentions noticing two shady men around the hospital, and she saw one of them in the news after he stabbed Ai. Ruby asks her about the second guy, but the girl doesn't know anything about him, and she tells Ruby it's her job to look for answers. Ruby goes to the studio, and Anomo mentions they're going to be shooting outside, but she tells Ruby to take a break whenever she likes. But she's lost in her thoughts, so Kana tells her Anomo is talking to her, but Ruby just mentions that she's going to be fine. On their way to the shooting location, Kana complains about outdoor video shoots, saying it's cold, and they need to wear outfits that are warm, thinking they're just like laborers. They reach the location, and as Kana films her part, Anomo thinks she will be famous. She knows Cho is pretty as well, but she holds herself back, while Kana freely shows her charm to everyone, so Anomo understands why she's the center of their group. They start to film Ruby, and Anomo thinks she's the prettiest out of the three of them, but she isn't interesting, because instead of creating her own identity as an idol, she seems to be imitating someone. Ruby thinks about how the person behind Goru and her mother's death is still free, and she starts to cry, but she's determined to avenge them, and Anomo is shocked seeing the look on her face. They finish their shooting, so Anomo tells them to relax, and Cho notes that they need to catch a plane tomorrow, but Kana plans to go to the hot spring. They wonder when Anomo will deliver the videos, so she tells them about all the work that goes into the editing, and she mentions that the first video will be delivered in the next month, but she will take her time with the second one. They wonder why she's taking so much time, so she notes that as a commercial creator, she sometimes wishes she could just go back to being an artist. Meanwhile, Akane goes to the hot spring, and she thinks about everything that happened during the trip. But she gets flustered when she remembers her kiss with Aqua, which makes her wonder if it means they're officially dating. Kana arrives, telling Akane to get out of the hot spring before she faints, since her face is already red, but she notes that she was thinking about something important. Kana mentions hearing Akane is going to be in a movie, but she notes that it's only going to be played at select theaters, but Kana tells her it's still a big achievement. She mentions that it's an important time for Akane, wondering how long she'll continue with doing the reality dating show, but Akane notes that it's not the case anymore, which surprises Kana. At night, Ruby asks Akane why she thinks Aqua became an actor, and she mentions it's because he needs to meet someone in the industry, but she knows she shouldn't bring it up with Ruby because she wants Aqua to forget the incident, and telling her more information could cause more problems, so she tells her that Aqua probably wants to meet his favorite actor. The next day, everyone goes to the Shrine of Performing Arts, and Kana realizes that most of the prayers are from people who want to become actors. Cho thinks they should all wish for something, so they all wish for their success, but Ruby wishes for Aqua to find the person responsible for Goru and their mother's death. 6 months later, Aqua watches the music video they filmed, and we see it has over 20 million views, as he wonders if it was thanks to their wishes, because the girls have even been invited as guests on TV. But we learn that it's still the beginning, as we see their father telling another girl she should have been more careful. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.